Chapter 1137. Hey, slow down, slow down. This bed is very elastic. Don't push your head against the ceiling. Xia Jinyuan noticed that her movements had suddenly become violent. His heart tightened, and he no longer had the time to tease her. He hurriedly hugged Yi Qian, who was still trying to jump off the bed. Everything was fine. Why did you suddenly? Yi Qian, who was in his arms, became violent for once. She grabbed his collar with both hands, and, as he spoke, she valiantly tugged on his shirt. Yes, there was no need to undo the fourth button. She had already done it for him. Seeing how violent Yi Qian was, Xia Jinyuan suddenly fell silent. He originally wanted to ask, "Why did you suddenly become so naughty?" But wasn't she naughty? His entire shirt, starting from the middle button, was completely torn apart by her. The pearl color buttons fell to the floor and made a few crisp sounds. Xia Jinyuan, who was a little stunned, looked towards the floor and saw one of the buttons roll under the bed. "Why did you suddenly become so naughty?" Xia Jinyuan slowly finished what he wanted to say. He looked at Yi Qian with his deep eyes and said, "You tore his shirt with your bare hands. That's a little fierce." Fortunately, she was wearing a shirt. If she was wearing a t-shirt, he would probably be able to see her violent side. The scene of Yi Qian tearing his t-shirt with her bare hands flashed across his mind. The 24-year-old major felt his nose itch a little. The scene was very exciting. Yi Qian's violent actions not only tore his shirt apart, but she also grabbed his collar and took it off his shoulders. She snorted and said, "You don't have to take it off slowly for me to see. I'll take it off for you." Wasn't just taking off his shirt? What was the big deal? She took it off for him. I've never taken off a man's shirt before. My technique is a little rusty, so I'm not very familiar with it. Yi Qian added. He wanted to strengthen his aura, but unexpectedly, Major Xia burst out laughing. Yi Qian, who had lowered his head, could clearly see the man's sexy chest rising and falling after he tore off his shirt. Every part of him exuded the wild charm of a man. It seemed that he was a little too aggressive, she thought silently. It seems that next time I have to prepare a few more shirts for you to tear. Why was the girl he liked so interesting? Raising an eyebrow, Jun Yin smiled wickedly. It just so happens that I've never taken off a woman's clothes before. My technique is also a little rusty, and my movements might be even more unfamiliar than yours. Little fox, don't blame me for being too slow when the time comes. When the same words came out of his mouth, Yi Qian, who was holding back his embarrassment, blushed so much that even his ears turned red. Very aggressive, but also very energetic. Why didn't I realize that you had such a unique side to you in the past? Xia Jinyuan truly loved the other side of her that she revealed from time to time. It was so real and so true to herself. It would never be known to outsiders. He was the only one who knew the other side of the woman he loved. Just thinking about it made his heart fill with love. Yi Qian didn't want to listen to it anymore. After being aggressive, he regretted it a little. Hearing his shameless words again, the shy Yi Qian covered his mouth and glared at him. Xia Jinyuan, you're not allowed to say any more. Shut up. Even though his mouth was covered, he couldn't stop his laughter. His eyes, which were as deep as the ocean, were filled with a gentleness that could drown Yi Qian. He looked at her for a moment and said in a low voice, "I won't say any more. I won't say any more." Chapter 1138. Yi Jian's thin lips moved gently in her palm. They were moist, warm, and itchy. She felt as if she had been electrocuted. Yi Jian was so shocked that she quickly retracted her hand and said, "Go and take a shower. Don't mention what happened just now again." Why did she tear his clothes just now? But he didn't regret it. At least she saw that he was obviously in a daze. He didn't react for at least 30 seconds and was stunned by his own actions. "Since I'm a good person, why don't you take off my entire shirt?" With his shirt hanging from his shoulders, Xia Jinyuan continued to shamelessly discuss the fun of tearing clothes with your bare hands. His dark and deep eyes were like an ancient well, and he smiled at Yi Qian with a dark and bottomless gaze. "You're unfamiliar with the craft. Practice a few more times, and you'll be able to master it one day." As he spoke, the corners of his lips curled into an ambiguous smile. He leaned close to Yi Jian's ear and whispered something softly. Yi Jian did not even think twice before biting his shoulder. Xia Jinyuan, you hooligan. You're calling me a hooligan in your heart, aren't you? Little fox, when two people are in love with each other, it's not called being a hooligan. It should be called being in love with each other. Her bite was as light as a puppy's lick. She couldn't bear to let him feel pain. She bit him, and he said what he wanted to say in his heart. His cheek gently rubbed against her ear. Under the warm light, their intertwined figures rubbed against each other. Time seemed to have stopped, and the air was sweeter than honey. Xia Jinyuan was a man of grace, gentlemanly, and responsible. However, he also had a common problem with all men, domineering. But there was something different about his domineering nature. It wasn't the kind of domineering that meant what he said, but the kind that meant what he said. It made Yi Qian feel that his sincere, domineering nature contained the happiness of being pampered and cared for. He had just said, "Man, there are too many people in his life, but the only one he can truly hold in his arms is his own woman. He doesn't know how to love her, but he will try his best to love her and let her know that he loves her. He will put his love into action. As a normal man, it's normal for him to have certain thoughts about the woman he loves. He hopes that one day he can explore it with her, and he also hopes that she will accept it and not run away. The premise is that everything is based on her willingness. All along, Yi Qian felt that he wasn't someone who was easily moved. But after hearing this, he couldn't deny that he was very, very tempted. She loosened her mouth and rested her head on his shoulder. She mumbled, "Your muscles are so hard. There's a little taste of salt and meat." How much did he want to eat meat? Hugging Yi Jian, who was so skinny that she hurt his hand, he stopped talking about adults. He had no choice. The little fox in his arms was no longer the little girl he first met. She should know what an 18-year-old adult should know. Bear with it. If you really want to eat, I don't mind you taking a few bites of me. Be good and go back to bed. If you don't want to sleep, you can read a book. Let's talk after I take a shower. After sleeping for a few hours, Yi Qian didn't feel sleepy. They hadn't talked for a few months, so it was good to sit and chat. Xia Jinyuan also took a quick shower. 3 minutes later, he was wearing the same fitness shorts as Yi Qian. He walked over lazily, exuding a cool aura. Turn on the light and read a book. The desk lamp is too dim. It hurts my eyes. Chapter 1139. I'm just looking through it. I don't plan on looking at it for long. After knowing each other for so long, Yi Qian could clearly feel that the topics of their conversation had changed drastically, and there was a natural intimacy between them. Looking at Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting next to her and emitting steam, Yi Qian smiled and said, "You'll smell better after taking a shower." It was just past May, and the temperature in the middle of the night was cool and comfortable. Both of them were in good physical condition, so they didn't need to cover themselves with a blanket. They leaned against the headboard with a pillow behind them and chatted in a low voice. After some sweet tenderness, they started to talk about business. From July to August, the Navy Commando team will undergo frogman training. The Major General has already applied to the Navy for you, and now we're just waiting for their reply. If there are no accidents, you'll have to leave immediately after the college entrance examination results come out. You'll have to undergo about 10 days of basic training first. Xia Jinyuan, who was talking about business, had a cold expression on his face. You've never experienced the Navy's training before. It'll be good for you to go and learn for a month. Navy frogman training? Yi Qian's eyes lit up when she heard this. She couldn't help but turn sideways. It sounds so mysterious. Is it a special force in the Navy? Pretty much, but we're used to calling it the commando team. The instructor in charge of this training is one of the top in the entire Navy. I've worked with him twice before. The first time I trained with him, I joined my current special force, and he joined the commando team. One had ambitions in the military, while the other had ambitions in the military. After half a year of working together, they each made their own mark. Xia Jinyuan smiled faintly when he talked about the past. He's an amazing commando. During the same period, I often competed with him. In the end, even the instructor was worried. There was such an amazing person. Why was he worried? Did you guys fight? Yi Qian's interest was piqued. It wasn't because there was such an amazing person, but because she saw Xia Jinyuan's expression of appreciation for the soldiers he trained with in the same period. In her mind, Captain Xia was amazing enough. She didn't expect there to be someone who was on the same level as him. Her eager expression made Xia Jinyuan raise his eyebrows. You want to see me fight with others? And you want me to win? Or do you want me to lose? Yi Qian smiled. He wanted to see both. You can't help an outsider, little fox. Xia Jinyuan raised his hand and gently flicked her forehead. He laughed and said, the result you want to see is not there. After half a year of intensive training, I didn't lose, and he didn't lose either. It's a tie. Two strong soldiers walked together and were assigned to the same training team. One was wearing a white military uniform, while the other was wearing a dark green military uniform. This left a deep impression on the instructors who had trained them. He's a nice guy, but he doesn't like to talk much. I live in the same dormitory as him. I nod when I wake up in the morning, nod when I come back at night, nod when I wake up in the morning, nod when I come back at night, nod again when I wake up in the morning, nod again when I come back at night. One day, the instructor saw us like this and said, both of you have cervical spondylosis? I see you guys pulling your necks every day. At that time, the whole team laughed. Now that I think about it, I want to laugh too. Xia Jinyuan was not stingy with his praise for the strong soldiers in the same period. This was because Li Jinyan was indeed a soldier worthy of respect. Although the two of them were from different branches of the military, they had more or less heard about him. During the fire incident in the bay, he was the one who led his commando team into the sea, risking the danger of being burned to death to save countless people. Such a strong person who was not afraid of sacrificing himself could only be admired. Chapter 1140. Yi Qian, who was listening quietly, could feel that Xia Jinyuan really admired this person. She couldn't help but laugh. Then I can't say that I know you when I go over. Don't give me too much training. All right, what's his name? You'll definitely get it if you give him too much training. Xia Jinyuan chuckled. This little brat was really thoughtful. Was she afraid that Li Jinyan would take revenge on her? He didn't have any enmity with Li Jinyan. They only contacted each other once or twice a year, but they didn't have any grudges. Looking at her sparkling eyes and her expression that said, Captain Xia must have been beaten up by him. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't have any grudges with Demon King Li. Training is training, but a soldier who doesn't fight for first place isn't considered a good soldier. We both fought for first place in training, so we have a good relationship in private. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed slightly. In her previous life, Yi Ying's mother-in-law was also surnamed Li. However, it was a secret who she married into. Even the villagers didn't know which family she married into to become an official's wife. She didn't pay attention to Yi Ying's in-laws. In her previous life, it was Yi Jifan and Yi Ying who had harmed her. Li Jinyan is a perfectionist. Once he finds out that someone isn't up to par, or that someone is trying to get by with their wits, he won't show them any mercy. He'll immediately invite them out of his commando team. He studied at West Point for half a year, and he has a Western-style ruthlessness when dealing with people. Considering that Yi Qian would be joining Li Jinyan's team, Xia Jinyuan didn't notice the hint of gloom in Yi Qian's eyes. He picked out some classic examples that could reflect his personality. He treats everyone who joins his team equally, regardless of their status. It can be said that he has a very upright personality, and it's admirable. As he spoke, he raised his hands and rested them behind his head. His slender legs were lazily crossed with an innate elegance. His thighs would even lightly touch Yi Qian's feet from time to time. When Yi Qian glared at him, he immediately smiled and stopped. Last year, a soldier with some background joined his team. He said that he was the son of a military staff officer. That kid has some skills. He represented the country in boxing and won a silver medal. With a bit of ability and a decent background, it's hard to avoid being arrogant. On the first day, he went to the dormitory that he wasn't satisfied with. He said that he wasn't used to sharing a room with 4 people and requested for a separate room. At that time, Li Jinyan didn't say a word. He turned around and called the Navy headquarters. 2 hours later, the staff officer's son left the training camp. Everyone is equal. The same training, the same learning, no special privileges, no special treatment, no difference in status. Little fox, after you go in, he'll add a rule that says there's no distinction between men and women. After talking so much about Li Jinyan, Yi Qian's curiosity was piqued by the contents of his training. He sounds like a good person with strong principles. Then isn't the content of his training quite harsh? Xia Jinyuan pondered for a moment before answering. It's harsher than the soldiers think. Every year, he'll select a few commandos from the thousands of people in the Navy, and only 10 or 20 will be left. If you train in his team, 1 month's training will be equivalent to 3 months of training. Learn well and build a solid foundation. It'll be more helpful for your future training. Xia Jinyuan didn't belittle Li Jinyan at all. He even made Yi Qian feel his admiration for him. He wasn't worried at all that praising another man in front of his girlfriend would damage his own image and raise others. Chapter 1141. A confident man was never afraid of being compared to others. Xia Jinyuan was such a man. He was confident, calm, and would never doubt Yi Qian's loyalty to love, let alone his own charm. As the night deepened, the low voices gradually disappeared. The lights went out, and the night was quiet. Everyone was sound asleep. Li Jinyan hadn't fallen asleep yet. The blue light from the screen illuminated his handsome and cold face, revealing a sharp and cold aura. He was still writing down the contents of the selection and training for the commandos. After countless revisions, he then arranged targeted training according to the abilities of the selected commandos. He didn't type quickly. Sometimes he had to pause for a while before he could type another line. The risk of underwater training had always been much higher than that of training on land. Take the training of being tied up and thrown into the water as an example. There were often students who choked because they couldn't untie the ropes in time. There were even some students who suddenly fainted after holding their breath for 2 minutes. Wait a minute, all kinds of dangers could happen. Team members are in groups of 2 and are connected by a partner rope. Each person must carry 100 kilograms of equipment and swim 30 kilometers together. At the same time, they must. A line of words appeared on the computer screen. Just looking at it made one's scalp tingle. Wouldn't it take a day and a night to swim 30 kilometers with 100 kilograms of equipment? There was a knock on the door. Then, the Navy commander walked in. "You're not done yet?" "Yes, I've finished the training for the Devil Week and the Foundation Week. Please take a look." Looking up from the computer screen, Li Jinyan picked up the folder next to his hand and handed it over. Seaweed sent a letter saying that this batch of soldiers for the primary selection wants me to practice with them. I plan to leave tomorrow afternoon, so we can practice together tonight. The Navy commander's hand that was about to take the folder froze. Then, he simply took it back. "You're doing the foundation training again?" "I'm going, so of course I have to do it. Please take a look." Li Jinyan pretended not to see the Navy commander's action and said indifferently, "Also, the Army wants to send people over. We'll talk about it when I come back." The Navy commander helplessly took the folder. After opening it, his furrowed brows loosened a little. He flipped to the back and sighed. "Jinyan, the other party is a girl. Shouldn't you soften your attitude a little? You're just a basic training night. How can a girl's physical fitness catch up to a Marine? Moreover, she's from the Army, so I'm afraid her swimming skills are only average. Listen to my advice and adjust the content slightly." "Adjust it slightly?" Li Jinyan smiled coldly and said indifferently, "Commander, I never give special treatment to anyone. Since she's here for training, she has to follow my instructions. Also, when the Army sees my training, it's still a question whether they'll send people over. The training content won't change. It's up to her whether she can persevere or not. I don't have any problems with it." This stubborn temper. Why was he so stubborn? The Navy commander glared at him. "You'll suffer sooner or later with that temper of yours. Jinyan, sometimes you need to be a little softer. Don't always act according to your own ideas." If it wasn't for his beloved general, he wouldn't even bother to say a word. His heart was tired. "Commander, you're thinking too much. I'm only targeting the training. The training can't be soft, and the enemy's artillery won't be soft either. I don't feel guilty about what I'm doing." There was no way he could continue writing tonight. Li Jinyan simply turned off the computer and stood up to speak to the Navy commander who was concerned about him. It's getting late. You can go back and rest. Chapter 1142. Seeing this, the Navy commander let out a long sigh. It's been hard on you, Jinyan. I know that it's normal for you to not give in. Only by being strict with yourself today will you be able to gallop on the battlefield in the future. The Storm Amphibious Frogman Commando Team has been established for less than a year. You've led your team members to many meritorious deeds. The generals of the 3 major warships are very satisfied with the results of your training. What you've done is worthy of the responsibility on your shoulders. Go and rest. I've noticed that you don't turn off the lights until 3 or 4 in the morning for the past few nights. You have to hurry up with your training, but you also have to take care of your own body. Li Jinyan, who had taken down his white navy cap from the coat rack, paused for a moment. He put on his military cap and looked at the commander with his cold and deep eyes. This is my responsibility. I can't let it go. What I've done is my duty. It's about training. You don't have to persuade me anymore. There's no way to take half a step back. Moreover, you know best that our country's frogman training started late and lagged behind developed countries by a lot. Now, we can only catch up with the frogmen in developed countries by working hard. The Storm Amphibious Frogman Commando Team was a brand new and the youngest force in the country's armed forces system. It had been established for less than a year. Before this, the country didn't have a specially established naval commando team. For example, the Guangzhou military region had its own Frogman Special Forces that belonged to the Guangzhou military region. A brigade in the Southern Province military region also had one that belonged to the Southern Province military region. However, only Li Jinyan's Storm Amphibious Frogman Commando Team truly belonged to the country's navy. This team had been established for less than a year and was the youngest force in the country's armed forces system. All the members were handpicked from the country's navy and army. Their physical fitness, skills, thinking, style, willpower, and quality were all first class. With such a young naval commando team, if Li Jinyan, as the captain, didn't strictly control it and increase the difficulty of training, how could he bear the responsibility? How could he answer to the country and the people? Facts have proven that choosing him as the first captain of this young armed force commando team, the Marine leaders absolutely did not make a wrong choice. Although it has been established for less than a year, their combat strength is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Coupled with the fact that their training places are all some deserted islands and corners, they have also become a strong, mysterious force. It could be said that in terms of strength, the Navy Storm Commandos were on the same level as the mysterious Shui Yu Special Forces. Both teams were the sharp blade of our country, and they were also the special forces that were hidden in the dark and not known by others. However, there were differences between the 2 units. First of all, the Snowfield Brigade was established at the end of the 80s, and it had been 10 years since then. On the other hand, the Storm Amphibious Frogman Assault Team was only established at the end of June last year. It hadn't even been a year since then. As the first captain of this unit, Li Jinyan shouldered a lot more pressure than Xia Jinyuan. Originally, he was a person who did not like to smile. Since he became the captain of the commando team, his sharp and cold, handsome face became colder and colder, and his eyes became sharper. Standing in front of the Navy commander, he was full of momentum and killing intent. Also, I'm intentionally increasing the difficulty of the training. You should know what I'm trying to prevent. This is not a place where some high-ranking officials want their sons to gain military merits and get promoted. Military merits and military ranks are given to capable comrades. Commander, I won't let the brothers who have gone through life and death with me suffer. Chapter 1143. After he finished speaking, the Navy commander patted him heavily on the shoulder and said with relief, Jinyan, you never let me down. Work hard. No matter what happens, we will support you. The 3 major warships will also support you. I will not interfere with Yi Qian's matters anymore. You are the captain, so you should have full authority to make arrangements. I will not have any objections. At this point, a trace of a smile finally appeared on Li Jinyan's face. It was very faint, like a small wave in the sea that quickly splashed and disappeared, but it was enough to dissolve the coldness in his handsome face. You've always been supportive of my work. I understand. With a Navy commander who supported the progress of his work, he could avoid many external factors and make his work progress smoother and more orderly. It's my duty to support you. Let's go back to the dormitory together. It's good that you go there tomorrow. This batch of recruits is much worse than last year. They can't even compare to the soldiers you trained during that period. I don't know if it's because all the good seedlings have been selected, but I always feel that they are too impetuous and not as good as the soldiers they used to be. The Navy commander said seriously. The lights in the corridor illuminated two figures in the same white military uniform until they disappeared at the top of the stairs. The wind blew and the waves hit. The sentries held their steel guns and straightened their backs. They watched the surroundings with eagle-like eyes and stood guard until dawn. A new day came with the rise of the sun. Xia Jinyuan, who had just finished his morning run, brought a bowl of piping hot porridge to Yi Qian, who had just finished washing up, and said seriously, "I didn't get to hear your praise in time last night. Remember to say it after you taste it. I'll wait to hear it." Sometimes, the great Major Xia could be narrow-minded. Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. After he scooped a spoonful of porridge, he praised, "Not bad. The porridge is thick, but not sticky. It's very fragrant." In order to make up for last night's lack of praise, Yi Qian drank the bowl of porridge for 10 minutes. 5 of those minutes were dedicated to praising Major Xia. In front of him, even if it was just a bowl of porridge, the smile on Yi Qian's face was more than ever. The kind of smile that came from the bottom of his heart was like the rising sun outside, bright and beautiful. In her previous life, Yi Qian was as quiet as an orchid. She was talented, but failed to live up to her expectations. She rarely smiled. In this life, only Xia Jinyuan brought her endless joy and made her smile like a blooming flower. Xia Jinyuan looked at her smiling as she spoke. She was still optimistic without a trace of gloominess, and the darkness in his eyes gradually dissipated. He thought that he wouldn't have to worry about her training in the future and could really let go. Let her face it alone and adjust by herself. She wouldn't need his guidance or psychological guidance anymore. After going through so many trials and tribulations, his little fox was much more determined and mature than before. Her mental fortitude had also improved greatly, and she no longer had the hesitation she had when facing the sacrifice of her comrades. At 6:30 in the morning, Yi Qian went back to her room to pack the revision books she brought to school today. Xia Jinyuan cleaned up the dishes. After he finished cooking in the kitchen and returned to his room, he saw her standing in front of her luggage. Her side profile was slightly dark, and she looked slightly serious. Yi Qian heard footsteps and turned around. She saw the tall figure walking towards her. She pursed her lips and bent down to take out a yellow training uniform from her luggage. "Captain Xia, where did you rush over from?" Looking at the unzipped luggage from last night, Xia Jinyuan smiled casually and said, "I wasn't in a hurry. I just finished my work and came over. I didn't deliberately rush over." Chapter 1144. With that said, Xia Jinyuan reached out to take back the training uniform that he had used to climb the landslide. However, Ji Yunshu's hand flashed away, preventing him from taking it back. "You were in a hurry, and you didn't even take a car. Yi Qian pointed at the 2 obvious mud marks on his knees. Although the corners of her mouth were pressed tightly together, her eyes were slightly red. "Where did you come from? How did you climb all the way?" If he had been training to climb, there would have been marks on the knees of his pants and the elbows of his sleeves. However, Yi Qian only saw the marks on his pants and not the elbows of his clothes. However, there was some mud on his sleeves, so she understood everything. It was difficult to hide something like this from her. Xia Jinyuan couldn't bear to see her cry for him. He used his thumb to gently wipe away the tears at the corners of her eyes and gently explained, "When I came out, there was a landslide and the road was blocked. I wanted to catch the last bus into the city, so I had to climb over the landslide. Be good, don't cry. We often encounter this kind of thing, so don't take it to heart. Just treat it as my field training. When you cry, I feel even worse in my heart. I originally wanted to see you smile and listen to your voice, but I didn't expect that I would make you cry." The last thing he wanted to see was her tears. Drop by drop, they smashed into his heart like marbles. His handsome face was gentle as he continuously coaxed her. His mellow voice carried a hint of pity. "Don't cry. It's just climbing a landslide. Look at how sad you are." Yiqian didn't know why she suddenly couldn't help but cry. She originally wanted to restrain herself, but when she heard his explanation, her heart suddenly tumbled, and her tears fell uncontrollably. Someone had traveled thousands of miles, even if it meant crawling, just to see her. Even though she had lived 2 lives and didn't know anything about sex, she understood that he really treated her differently. He really put her in his heart and gave her a headache. He loved her in a way that she could accept and guided her growth. No matter how strong her personality was, she had been too lonely in her previous life. Now that there was such a person in this life, she felt a warmth that she had never felt before. It was so warm that her heart was burning, so warm that tears suddenly flowed down her cheeks. Xia Jinyuan was a little flustered. He really didn't know why she was crying. In all these years, he had only heard her cry twice. The first time was when her comrades sacrificed themselves, and the second time was right now. He really didn't expect her to cry like this. Just because he had climbed over a landslide, it had caused her to tear up in bunches. Xia Jinyuan was a natural at comforting others. He spoke in a low voice and did not repeat a single sentence. "I wouldn't be standing in front of you if something happened to me. I just wanted to see if you were okay, but I ended up making you cry. Little fox, you have to forgive me this once." He was always thinking for her, but he never considered his own hardships. Yiqian, whose nose was slightly stuffy, held the hand that was wiping her tears. She looked up at the man whose handsome face was filled with tenderness. "Captain Xia, I will definitely take good care of myself. Just like how you take care of me, I will take good care of myself. You don't have to appear every time when my training is at its toughest. I know that you care about me a lot and are worried about me, but you really don't have to rush over every time when my training ends. I will grow as fast as possible and won't let you worry about me anymore." Yiqian looked at the man who was crying because of her with his clear eyes. His deep, dark eyes were filled with reluctance. She tiptoed and gently planted a kiss on his chin. "You're heartbroken that I traveled thousands of miles to come here. Similarly, I'm heartbroken that you've worked so hard for me." Chapter 1145. You were in such a hurry yesterday, yet you were still wearing a white shirt. You clearly put away your dirty clothes in advance and purposely put them on because you didn't want me to worry. Since you know that I would be worried, don't tire yourself out like this in the future, okay? In order to not tire Xia Jinyuan out again, Yiqian even resorted to seducing him with her beauty. She paused after every sentence, then kissed him gently on the chin. She kissed him back and forth, whispering sweet words to him in a soft voice. It was early in the morning, but the young major's heart was already racing. His long arms wrapped around her slender waist. Xia Jinyuan kissed the little mouth that was messing with his emotions. He nibbled on her soft lips and sucked deeply. Sometimes he was gentle, and sometimes he was domineering. Her breaths were intertwined with his. Their breaths were so intertwined that they could no longer tell who was who. The sudden deep breath made Yiqian's body tremble slightly. Her trembling hands wrapped around his muscular waist. She stood on her heels and used her lips and tongue to kiss the man who gave her a sense of security and love. Her active response made Xia Jinyuan very happy. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. At least she didn't cry anymore. People always said that women were made of water. He didn't believe it at first, but now he really believed it. His little fox, who didn't even blink when she saw blood, suddenly burst into tears. Her tears fell like strings, and he was stunned for a few seconds. Last time, he was prepared when she cried for her comrades who had sacrificed themselves. This time, she cried because she had climbed down the slope. He really didn't have any time to prepare, and it was completely out of his expectations. Their relationship had been progressing well ever since the love letter, but they were still separated more than they were together, so they lacked the intimate interaction between lovers. If they really wanted to interact with each other, Both of them were the type of people who could restrain themselves. They wouldn't let anything happen to them. After the kiss, the two of them pressed their foreheads against each other and quickly adjusted their breathing. Xia Jinyuan was tall, so when he lowered his head, he could see Qian's well-developed chest rising and falling right in front of his eyes. He thought to himself, "This is really going to kill me." Then he closed his eyes and stopped looking at the scene that was going to kill him. Yi Qian, who exercised all year round. Not only did she develop well, her body proportions were also perfect. Her legs were long and slender, her waist was slender, and her breasts were firm. Coupled with her imposing manner, she attracted the attention of boys wherever she went. When Xia Jinyuan walked her to the back door of the provincial first high school, she saw several boys looking at her. However, they didn't look like they were in love with her. Instead, they looked confused. It's only been 7 days. How did Yi Qian become so thin? Also, who was the man beside her? He had never seen it before. When another two boys glanced over again, Major Xia slightly straightened his expression and swept his gaze over them. Without doing anything, he killed the two boys and made them leave in a panic. Let's go, it's so scary. Who's that man? Why did Yi Qian lose so much weight? The two boys from grade 2, class 2, whispered to each other as they walked quickly. Yi Qian was definitely a celebrity in the provincial first high school. There wasn't a student from grade 1 to grade 3 who didn't know her. It couldn't be helped. Every year at the opening ceremony, she would go on stage as the student representative. The teachers of each class would often say to their students, "Look at your senior, Yi Qian. Look at your senior, Yi Qian. Look at Yi Qian from grade 3, class 1. Look at her, look at her. Her grades are good enough, right? She's still so hardworking." Chapter 1146. Look at you, your grades are a mess, yet you're still not working hard. Do you think you're good? If you're really good, learn from Yi Qian. If you're half as good as her, I won't even care if you sleep in class. In the second year of high school, Yi Qian had always been compared to others. She had to compete with them every day without fail. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if someone didn't recognize her. Because they recognized her, when they saw a young man with a strong aura beside her, their gazes lingered on her longer than usual. Who's that man? His gaze is so scary. He must be Yi Qian's brother. They look a little alike. The way they walk and their expressions are similar. They look like siblings. Are you crazy? Yi Qian doesn't have a brother. She's the only one left at home. How can he be her brother? But they do look a little alike. Cousin? Cousin? Distant relative? 7:20 in the morning was the peak time for school. There were many people at the front gate and back gate. Students who passed by would usually pay attention to Yi Qian, and some would even come over to greet her. However, none of them did that today. They all looked at her silently and then left. Why did she lose so much weight? Is she sick? She did lose weight, but she doesn't look like she's sick. She's in good spirits. Who's the person beside her? He's quite handsome, but his gaze is a little scary. I don't dare to look at him too much. Some of the whispers reached their ears clearly, while others were muffled and couldn't be heard clearly. Even if they reached his ears, it didn't affect Xia Jinyuan. He smiled and walked elegantly to school with Yi Qian. Everyone says you've lost weight. I'm afraid they think you've lost weight because of a scary man like me. Am I scary? I don't think so. I look decent. It was the first time Xia Jinyuan was accompanying his future girlfriend to school. The corners of his mouth were raised high. Although they weren't holding hands, he could at least show his face in front of the provincial first high school students to make his presence felt. Although his identity hadn't been recognized, it was good to be able to walk in front of her classmates. Don't think too much, Captain Xia. They looked at me first, then you. You, take a second look. When he said that he wanted to send her to school, he already knew that there would definitely be many students sizing her up. As a matter of fact, he didn't know how many gazes he received along the way. Yi Qian said with a smile. He nodded at a girl who was smiling at him and politely said, "Good morning." Then he continued to speak to Xia Jinyuan, "But you're right about one thing. I'm afraid they really think that I've lost weight because of you." He returned to the team in the afternoon. The distance from the residential area to the campus was less than 400 meters. Walking slowly for 10 minutes became the time they spent together. She wanted to spend more time with him, even if they were seen by their classmates. In the past, she was afraid that he would be influenced by an underage student because of his identity as a soldier. Now that she was 18 years old, what did she have to be afraid of? Hurry up and go. I'll visit you again when I'm free. Xiao Jinyuan walked Yi Qian all the way to the back gate of the school. He was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and black trousers. He stood by the side, looking handsome and elegant. His eyes contained a gentle smile as he watched Yi Qian enter the school. The boys would look at Yi Qian more often, while the girls would secretly look at Xiao Jinyuan more often. He stood tall and slender among the students. His handsome face contained a deep and charming smile. Even if he only smiled at Yi Qian, it still made the hearts of the girls who walked past him palpitate. Chapter 1147. Even though she didn't say a word, she couldn't help but blush when she walked past him. Yi Qian, who had already entered the school, smirked when he saw this. So many people were looking at him. Fine, this was the first time she felt a little jealous. Captain Xia. Yi Qian walked up to him and gestured for him to lower his head with a smile. Then, under everyone's gaze, Yi Qian suddenly kissed Major Xia, who was bending down with his head lowered. Gasps could be heard all around. Both the boys and girls watched as the good student of their school, Yi Jian, kissed a man's face. I'm going to school. See you next time, my good brother. After the kiss, Yi Qian looked at Major Xia, who was stunned by his actions and felt even better. He waved at him, and amidst the gasps, Yi Qian turned around and walked into the school gate without any pressure. Xiao Jinyuan was really dumbfounded. Just a second ago, he was still thinking that his identity could not be exposed. The next second, his little fox, who never acted according to common sense, kissed him. She kissed him in front of at least 30 students. After the kiss, she even called him good brother to confuse the public. The major touched the cheek that had been kissed, and the corners of her mouth curled up even higher. She even smiled at the few male students who were staring at her in horror. With a noble temperament, she elegantly left the school through the back door. That's right, his little fox finally admitted his identity. After 4 years of waiting, he finally saw the light of day. Breaking news. Yi Qian just kissed a boy at the back of the school gate. It was absolutely true. Countless students saw it with their own eyes. That's right. I'm not lying to you. It really happened. She really kissed a guy. That guy was so handsome and had such a strong aura. He was said to be Yi Qian's older brother. They did look a little alike, but they didn't know if he was her older brother. Even before the morning self-study period, news of Yi Qian kissing a guy spread like wildfire. Instantly, the classrooms of every grade were filled with gasps of disbelief. That's impossible. She really kissed him. It can't be. You really saw it? F***CK. Really? The goddess in our hearts really kissed a man? What does he look like? Handsome? Ugly? Damn, is he that handsome? It can't be. And it's very high? There was no Yi Qian in the class, so he could only ask. Meanwhile, so the grade 12 class 1 students were staring at Yi Qian. Their eyes were like searchlights, trying to find some clues from her face. This time, Jiasin did not hesitate to take the lead. She squeezed onto the same stool as Yi Qian and said with a worried look, "There are only 40 days left until the college entrance exam. Yi Qian, why are you kissing a man? If you really want to kiss me, you have to do it in secret. Why did you kiss me in public? You have to pay attention to your image, okay? You have to pay attention to your influence. Let me tell you, the whole school knows about it now. Everyone knows about it. Even teacher wants to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. Just wait, I'll definitely have a heart-to-heart talk with you later." The girl who was listening by the side was extremely anxious. Why didn't she get to the point? She kept shushing her and said, "Are you in a relationship? What does that guy do? Where is he from? What did you date? Jiasin, get to the point, get to the point." Damn, she was asking all the point. And Jiasin turned her head to glare at the girl who was urging her and said, "When did you date? Why is there no news at all? Who is that guy? Is he reliable? What does he do? Do you even know about it?" Chapter 1148. After she asked the question, all the students held their breaths and waited for Yi Qian to answer calmly. Then, someone rushed into the classroom like a gust of wind and shouted, "Holy sh*t! I just heard someone say that Yi Qian kissed a man who was so handsome that he angered both men and gods. She even took the initiative to kiss him. Do any of you know?" The classroom was very quiet, but the boy's voice was exceptionally loud. The students who were waiting for Yi Qian's answer turned to glare at the boy who came late. All the students sitting in the classroom knew, "You're the only one who knows. So handsome that he angered both men and gods." Yi Qian laughed and pondered for a while before saying, "Not so handsome that he angered both men and gods. But handsome, he is indeed a little handsome." And Jiasin rubbed her forehead and forced a smile. She asked, "Jane Eyre, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Can you answer me a little? You dare to run a red light at a critical moment. Aren't you afraid of being punished?" Everyone was only concerned about who Yi Qian kissed, but in Jiasin's focus was completely different. She was afraid that something would happen to Yi Qian, and, at this time, something would happen to him. "No, don't worry." Yi Qian comforted her and smiled. "I'll tell you who he is in the future. It's a little inconvenient now, but I can tell you that he is indeed someone who is very close to me. Our relationship is far from what you have seen. Everyone's curiosity can be quelled. It was just a normal kiss. Don't tell me that the couples in class don't know what a normal kiss is. This is what it is." The few couples in the class kissed normally. Yi Jian just didn't say it out loud. The students of grade 12 class 1 immediately understood. A few boys screamed and said, "She's already taken. There's no hope for all of them. Go, 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 go. Turn your grief into strength and learn." The whole class burst into laughter. If they were to talk about it, they wouldn't be surprised. It was just a small matter. Who didn't have a crush on someone? Who didn't fantasize about kissing someone in their heart? As for Yi Qian, his grades were at the forefront, and his actions were also at the forefront. They couldn't compare. "Are you sure? Are you sure?" The students dispersed, but Jiasin didn't leave. She said softly, "You always have your own way of doing things. If you say it's fine, then it's fine. Oh damn, I was scared to death just now. I was just getting breakfast when I heard a bunch of people talking about how Yi Qian kissed a man. A very, very handsome man. How handsome." And Jiasin had always believed in Yi Qian. When she said that she was fine, her worries were immediately swept away. She giggled and asked, "There's only one handsome man I've ever seen, and that's the handsome military officer who taught us about precautionary measures in junior high. TSK, that's what I call handsome. He's so handsome that I'm drooling." As she spoke, she pretended to wipe the corner of her mouth. "I'm drooling all over the floor." She still remembered? Yi Qian smiled meaningfully and said, "Yes, he is. Next time, I'll bring you to meet him." "No way. He's really that handsome." Okay, bring me to meet him. Bring me to meet him." And Jiasin immediately nodded. Then she touched Yi Qian's arm and frowned as she stared at her wrist. "What happened? You've lost so much weight in 7 days. Where did you go?" "I went to do something. I didn't eat much. It's fine. I'll be fine after a few days." Just then, the morning self-study bell rang. Yi Qian gestured for her to quickly return to her seat. "I'll be fine here. It won't affect anything. Hurry back to your seat." Chapter 1149. Since Yi Qian dared to kiss him, she was not afraid that something would happen. Moreover, she did not do anything bad. What impact could it have? Affect her studies? No. Even if she went home and rested until the day of the college entrance exam, it would not affect her studies. Affect her classmates? She did not date anyone in school, nor did she go around talking about who she dated. What impact could it have? The teachers naturally knew about it. How could they not know about it when the entire school knew about it? The school doesn't have to worry about this. I know who that man is. He is someone who has known Yi Qian for many years. Principal Chow smiled at the worried teacher Tong. You don't have to mention it or worry about it. It won't affect Yi Qian's exams. Principal Chow was not surprised at all when he heard the news. He had long noticed that Major Xia treated Yi Qian differently. Now that Yi Qian had turned 18, There was some progress in their relationship. The two of them were already restraining themselves. If she could restrain herself from falling in love, why would she be afraid of anything else? There was no need to worry at all. Nothing would happen. Since the principal had said so, Teacher Tong did not look for Yi Qian to have a heart-to-heart talk. The school did not intervene. The incident of Yi Qian kissing a man faded away on the third day with the arrival of the midterm exams. The midterm exams were for the first to second year of high school. The third year of high school was a mock college entrance exam. The entire school was quiet. Only the sound of writing could be heard in the classroom. Old Madam Yi stood at the school gate and looked at the deserted campus. She said to Yi Jifan, who had accompanied her, "Jifan, ask the security guard when the students will be dismissed. Also, ask around where Yi Qian's form teacher is. I'll go talk to her first." She was quite capable. She even managed to get into the provincial #1 middle school. But she was too disobedient. Yi Jifan had always been good at pretending. When he heard this, he smiled and said, "Okay, then you rest first. I'll go ask around." After 2 minutes, he came back. What a coincidence. It's the midterm exams. I asked the security guard to call Miss Jian's form teacher. We can only go in when she arrives. Mom, what kind of lousy school is this? Don't you have any respect for your elders? Yi Xiang, who was dressed in bright red, frowned and said in disgust, Lei and Changchang should go to an elite school. Mom, I don't like this kind of place. Yi Jifan glanced at her and said calmly, being able to enter the provincial first high school is equivalent to having 1 foot in the door of a university. Whether Lei and Changcheng can enter is still unknown. Here, it mainly depends on the results. What do you mean by looking at the results? Donate 100 to 200,000 yuan to their school, and my 2 sons can enter whenever they want. They can even choose their teachers. Yi Jixiang rolled her eyes at her brother and curled her lips in disdain. Besides, I'm going to send them abroad to further their studies. Who asked them to stay in the country? Yaozu and I are even considering becoming American citizens. Old Madam Yi did not like her daughter's exaggeration and said unhappily, "Don't talk about things that have no basis in reality. The province's #1 middle school is a century-old school. It's not a school you can enter just because you want to. Also, don't keep talking about what school you want to join. I don't like to hear that." Ever since Sun Yaozu's identity was cleared, Old Madam Yi clearly felt that her daughter and son-in-law did not like to listen to her. But she had no choice and could only accept it. But that did not mean that she could not do anything. She still had to deal with Yi Qian's matter. One did not want Yi Qian to ride on her daughter's head. The other did not want Yi Qian to stand out. Both of them wanted to get what they wanted, so they still had to rely on her at crucial times. Chapter 1150. The whole school was in the middle of a midterm exam. Even if the school guard connected the phone to the teacher's office, Teacher Tong could only come out after she was done invigilating the exam. The weather in May was not too hot. Sitting under the shade of a tree and chatting for 10 to 20 minutes could pass in the blink of an eye. However, Yi Jixiang had no intention of chatting at all. After standing for less than 5 minutes, she said impatiently, "Why hasn't she come out yet? Brother, hurry her up. What's she doing? We've been waiting for so long, and there's still no sign of her." She was standing outside the school like a fool. She thought that her family valued that wretched girl a lot. Jixiang, go back to the car and wait. Don't walk around in front of me. You're making me dizzy. Seeing that her daughter was so impatient, Old Madam Yi asked her to go back to the car so that she would not leave a bad impression on the teacher. She also wanted to play the family card in front of the teacher. She wanted to let the teacher know that it was not that the family could not tolerate Yi Qian, but that the girl was too wild and could not tolerate the family. She wanted to control the teacher's attitude first and then let the teacher lecture Yi Qian. She wanted to see if she knew how to respect the teacher and whether she had any sense of propriety and shame. Old Madam Yi was definitely an expert in handling family matters. After learning about Yi Qian from Yi Jifan, she immediately decided not to go to Yi Qian directly. She would go to the teacher first and ask the teacher to stand on her family's side. When the time was right, she would wipe away a few drops of tears and cry. She did not believe that the girl could escape unscathed. In terms of success, Yi Jifan was definitely skilled in politics. However, he was not half as good as old Madame Yi when it came to handling family matters. As for Yi Jixiang, needless to say, she had not learned anything at all. She believed that there was nothing in the world that could not be solved with money. Yi Jixiang really went back to her imported red BMW. Old Madame Yi secretly frowned as she watched her leave. This was also the reason why she did not want to fall out with Yi Jifan. With a brother who was an official protecting her, Sun Yaozu would have some misgivings. Jifan, your sister has a straightforward personality. As her brother, you should teach her more in the future. I'm old, and I can't care so much about your matters. In the future, your sister can only rely on you. I hope you'll take good care of your sister on account of how well I've treated you all these years. When Lele and Cheng grow up, your sister will have someone to rely on in her next life. Old Madame Yi had always doted on her own daughter. Now that she was old, seeing that her daughter couldn't keep her cool, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to control Sun Yaozu in the future. When the time came, she would divorce and become an abandoned woman. After returning to the southern province for so long, this was the first time old Madame Yi had really put down her old face and begged her adopted son to take care of her for her sake. It could be seen that she no longer trusted her son-in-law, Sun Yaozu. For the sake of his daughter, he was willing to throw away his pride. However, Yi Jifan smiled faintly. Mom, you're worried that Jixiang won't be able to protect her, but why can't I see that you're worried that no one will protect Unyielding in the future? Mom, don't you think the world is still fair? Your daughter doesn't have anyone to protect her, and mine doesn't either. It's really fair. His words made old Madame Yi's eyelids twitch. That matter. She was indeed a little too cruel. She was also a little too young back then. She was afraid that her second daughter-in-law would get pregnant with a boy and take away the Yi family's assets. You still blame me in the end. I know. Old Madame Yi let out a long sigh. Her youthful spirit instantly withered with that sigh. She suddenly felt that she had aged a lot. Chapter 1151. In the face of old Madame Yi's remorse, Yi Jifan's expression was very calm. More than 10 years had passed, and the things that made him so angry that he wanted to kill someone were now over. His daughter Ying's studies were good, and she was ambitious. If she really had a son, it might not be as good as a daughter. He said it just to provoke old Madame Yi. Old Madame Yi didn't know that he only wanted to provoke her. For her daughter to have a backer in the future, no matter how angry she was, she had to suppress it. What happened back then was my fault. Jifan, if you want to blame someone, blame me. It has nothing to do with your sister. Mom knows that she was wrong. Now, I can only do my best to make up for what I owe you. If you really can't let it go, then blame this old fart. Now that he saw that she had something to ask of him, he started to put on airs in front of her. Endure, she could only endure. Who knew that the seed she brought back from the side branch would be so promising? Look at what you're saying. You're my mother. How could I blame you? All right, let's not talk about the past. Yi Jifan stopped talking about it. When old Madame Yi said, now I just want to make it up to you like back then, her meaning was very clear. That year, when he found out that his wife had been sterilized, he went to find old Madame Yi the night he came back. That day, many things happened one after another. It was also that night that he found out that he wasn't old Madame Yi's biological son. The reason why she didn't want her wife to have a second child was very simple. She didn't want her daughter-in-law, who had no blood relations with her, to have another boy. In order to suppress the matter, old Madame Yi proposed to split Sun Xueqing's pension into 2 parts. One for him, and the other for Yi Jixiang. As for the jade pendant, she could pretend that she didn't see it. At the same time, she would leave the village with Yi Jixiang and not interfere with anything, including the election of village officials. As for him, he would no longer pursue old Madame Yi's responsibility and would no longer think about having a boy. At the same time, he would use the jade pendant as a condition to watch over Yi Qian. He could give her food, but he definitely couldn't let her become a talent. After so many years of twists and turns, The only thing that could not be allowed to happen was the matter of Yi Qian becoming a talent. However, there was still one thing that he didn't understand back then. Yi Jifan thought about it and asked directly, "Big brother shouldn't be uncle's son, right? Back then, which family did you send uncle's son to?" This question made old Madame Ye's face darken. "Jifan, this wasn't part of our deal. Your uncle's son is Yi Qian's father. Something happened to him, and he died outside." Yi Jifan's expression darkened slightly. He smiled and said, "Don't be angry. I only asked because I heard that IQ is hereditary. I thought that Yi Qian was so good at studying. Big brother doesn't have such a high IQ. Sister-in-law is smart, but she's not as smart as Yi Qian. Also, don't you think it's strange that Yi Qian doesn't look like big brother at all? He looks 60% like sister-in-law, but I don't know who he got the other 40% from." Old Madame Ye's face was not only dark, but also cold. "That's why before I left the village, I repeatedly reminded you to watch over that damned girl. You can't let her have the chance to become a talent." As she spoke, her voice was tense and filled with disgust. "Your sister-in-law married Yi Xinfan for less than a month and said that she had a child. Then, the child was born before a month. She was obviously unclean before she married him, bringing someone else's bastard child into our Yi family." Chapter 1152. Yi Xinfan, Yi Qian's father, was an honest villager. When he was young, Yi Jifan had never been afraid of his big brother. Now that he knew something he didn't know, Yi Jifan nodded and said without a trace of surprise, "No wonder the little girl didn't follow Big Brother. She's not Big Brother's child. She didn't look like Yi Qian, she didn't have the same IQ, and she didn't have the same way of doing things. It made sense that she wasn't Big Brother's child. What about Big Uncle's son?" The elders in the village said that when Big Aunt came back with Big Uncle, the whole village was shocked. Even the way she walked and spoke was like a fairy. They even said that she was so beautiful that a notorious villain in town wanted to take her for himself. Yi Jifan looked at old Madame Yi and found that her eyelids were drooping, as if she didn't want him to see the expression in her eyes. It seemed that old Madame Yi had some misgivings about Big Uncle's family and his son. Big Aunt was an outsider. When she came back with Big Uncle, even the way she walked and spoke was like a fairy. This meant that Big Aunt was very elegant back then. To be able to raise such a beautiful and elegant daughter in that era, it was definitely not something an ordinary family could raise. Since Big Aunt had an extraordinary background, why did she come back with Big Uncle? Also, that era was extremely chaotic. Fight the landlord, fight the capitalists. Many rich families married their daughters off to 3 generations of poor farmers. Old Madame Yi, for example, married into the family. Could it be that Big Aunt was the same? An outsider following his uncle to a poor mountain village. Yi Jifan couldn't help but narrow his eyes as he thought about it. He had always suspected that there was someone behind Yi Qian. Could it be that Big Aunt's family found her and took Yi Qian as Big Aunt's granddaughter and raised her in secret? It wasn't impossible. Beside him, old Madame Yi, who was gradually calming down, said, "I raised your big brother for a while, so I have some feelings for him. If that little girl really is his child, I don't need you to raise her." His face lost some of its gloominess, leaving behind only disgust. "Only son Shueqing knows whose child that wretched girl is. Mom, about Auntie." Yi Jifan still wanted to ask about the past, but the school bell rang, signaling the end of the first exam. Old Madame Yi directly interrupted him. "The exam is over. Go and urge the school guard to call the teacher again." It was obvious that old Madame Yi did not want to talk about her uncle's family at all. Yi Jifan felt that he had found a clue to find out who was behind Yi Qian, but he did not intend to tell old Madame Yi. When Teacher Tong returned to the office with the test papers, an invigilator who had just finished class said, "Teacher Tong, Yi Qian's grandmother from your class is outside the school. She said she has something to discuss with you." Yi Qian's grandmother? There was a trace of surprise on Teacher Tong's face. Yi Qian had a grandma? After thanking the teacher for informing her, Teacher Tong went directly to the school gate. Through the school gate, she saw an old woman wearing a modified Republic of China costume standing outside. Beside her was a woman in a red dress. Even from a distance, she could see that she was very elegant. As for the person on the right of the old woman, Teacher Tong could not help but tense up. Yi Ying's father was now a cadre in the provincial government. "You must be my granddaughter's form teacher, Teacher Tong." Old Madam Ye's round face smiled amiably. She greeted her with a kind expression. "Teacher Tong, thank you for making the trip. I am Yi Qian's grandmother. I haven't seen my granddaughter for a long time, and I miss her very much. Sigh, I just wanted to come and see if she was doing well." Chapter 1153. As she spoke, she raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. Teacher Tong saw that this elegant old lady was using a silk handkerchief to wipe her tears. She then looked at the old lady's clothes. There was not a single wrinkle on the old lady's clothes. There were delicate flowers embroidered on the sleeves. She wore a navy blue pleated dress that was long enough to reveal the toes of her shoes. As she looked down, Teacher Tong realized that the old lady was even wearing embroidered shoes. She was obviously rich. Such a rich grandmother coming to her door. Teacher Tong's heart skipped a beat. She maintained her composure and said politely, "You're too kind. As far as I know, Yi Qian is an orphan." Before the second year of the Lunar New Year, she had been living with Mr. Yi. As for her grandmother, "I'm sorry, old madam, I've never heard of her." "Teacher Tong, can we talk inside the school? There are some things that can't be explained clearly while standing." Old madam, Yi could tell that the teacher was protecting Yi Qian. Well, that brat's grades were not bad. Teachers would always protect good students. Yi Shifan said, "Teacher Tong, I miss my granddaughter. I came all the way here just to see Yi Qian. If you think there's a problem, you can ask me and verify if my mother is Yi Qian's grandmother. How about that?" Teacher Tong could not help but laugh. "Mr. Yi, you're exaggerating. I don't need to verify anything. It's just a routine understanding. As teachers, we have the responsibility to protect the safety of our students." She really couldn't believe that such a dignified grandmother would suddenly appear. How could she not be suspicious? "Teacher Tong, are you afraid that we'll kidnap Yi Qian or something? My mother and I sat in the car for more than 10 hours just to see Yi Qian." "What? Is your teacher going to stop a grandmother from seeing her granddaughter? You're being too nosy." Yi Zhixiang's tone was particularly aggressive. Teacher Tong said in a low voice, "Madam, I'm a teacher. I have my responsibilities. Please be more polite." "Thank you." Yi Zhixiang's face turned red, then white. If it wasn't for old Madam Ye's words, she probably would have gotten serious with Miss Tong. "Teacher Tong, I have also been waiting outside for half an hour. If you have doubts, it means that you are a teacher and truly care about my granddaughter." Old Madam Yi once again used the silk handkerchief in her hand to wipe the corners of her eyes. Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, "This child has had a hard life, but it's all thanks to you. With a good person like you taking care of her, she grew up smoothly. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking care of my granddaughter. Thank you. Thank you." Seeing an old woman apologizing, crying, and thanking her from time to time, Teacher Tong, who was a little vigilant, finally invited the three of them to her office. "Yi Qian still has an exam later, so it's not convenient for me to bring you to see her. Let's go to the principal's office first and wait for her to finish her exam before we call her over." Teacher Tong had always been cautious when it came to Yi Qian. Now that an old lady had suddenly appeared and was even brought here by Yi Ying's father, Teacher Tong felt uncomfortable whenever she thought about how Yi Ying had treated Yi Qian in school. She had to let Principal Chow know and let him come out to greet her. Principal Chow was also surprised by old Madam Ye's arrival. He had never heard of Yi Qian having a grandmother. While pouring water, he secretly said to Teacher Tong, "Go and call old Chen over. Tell him that Yi Qian's grandmother is here." Chapter 1154. Old Chun was the only one who knew about Yi Qian's situation in school. Before he came, they would wait and see why this so-called grandma was here. Yi Qian hadn't appeared for a few years. Now that the college entrance exam was about to begin, she came looking for them. Her intentions were unclear, and she seemed a little unfriendly. Teacher Tong took the opportunity to go to the library. Since she was here, she must have something to do with Yi Qian, but she had to think about why she was here. Principal Chun was organizing the new batch of books in school when he heard that Yi Qian's grandma was here. He put away the books in his hands and smiled. "Sorry for troubling you, Teacher Tong. I'll go over right now. You don't have to tell Yi Qian. Don't affect her exams. Don't worry, I'll take care of Yi Qian. It's just that her grandma came with Yi Ying's father. You might need to be more careful." Teacher Tong didn't want to badmouth her former student's parents, so she reminded him implicitly. She had never heard Yi Qian mention such a dignified grandma. She felt that something was wrong. Principal Chun didn't panic at old Madam Ye's arrival. Ever since old Uncle Jin told him everything, he had a deeper understanding of Yi Qian's family matters. In addition, she came over during the spring festival to say that she wanted to move Yi Qian's household registration. It could be said that Principal Chun had been waiting for old Madam Yi to come. Now that she was here, he would meet her. Principal Chun walked calmly towards the teacher's building. Old Madam Yi was definitely here for Yi Qian's household registration. There were only 40 days left until Yi Qian's college entrance exam. Old Madam Yi was here with evil intentions. She thought about how Yi Qian had persevered all these years. No matter how tired she was, she never said that she would give up. Why? Wasn't it to fight for a way out for herself? In the end, there were always some dirty people who jumped out to make trouble for her. Looks like there will be more trouble in the future, Principal Chun said softly. A terrifying light flashed across the sniper's eyes. If they really made trouble, he wouldn't let them have a good time. If he dared to ruin Jianyuling's future, he would have to get past him first. In the principal's office, old Madam Yi was complaining so much that her voice was trembling. Her amiable face was filled with sorrow as she sobbed. "My granddaughter has never been close to me since she was young. She has a strong personality and will remember even the slightest thing in her heart. She won't forget it for a long time. Back then, I wanted to take her with me, but she didn't agree and insisted on staying at Uncle's house. It's not bad to have her own uncle to take care of her, so I didn't try to persuade her any further. I thought that since it was her uncle who was taking care of her and she was still in the village, she would be used to living there. Who would have thought that the older the child is, the more ideas he has? He has been stubborn against my second son without saying a word. He doesn't recognize his own uncle or aunt. Now, he doesn't even recognize me as his grandmother. He only cares about his own personality and doesn't leave any leeway for his family. For his sake, I've been worried sick. I recite sutras every day, hoping that Bodhisattva will bless him and keep him safe and everything will go smoothly." As she spoke, old Madam Yi touched the string of red sandalwood Buddha balls on her wrist. She had been twirling them for many years until they were shiny. She softly chanted, "Amit Ba." She continued, "Now that I see that he is promising, my years of reciting sutras were not in vain." Yi Qian was promising. Her years of reciting sutras were not in vain. She wanted to say that the reason Yi Qian was so good at reading was all because of her reciting sutras. Principal Chun, who was waiting for Principal Chun to come over, was not so easily led by the nose by an old lady. He smiled warmly and said, "It's good to believe in Buddha. First, it's to have peace of mind. Second, it's to have things go smoothly. Third, it's to have peace of mind." Chapter 1155. She talked for 5 to 6 minutes, but Principal Chow was neither cold nor warm. She could not even tell his attitude. Old Madam Yi picked up the disposable cup on the coffee table and took a sip of water. It seemed that the wretched girl was deeply liked by the teachers and leaders in the school. That would be troublesome. If they all liked her, it was unlikely that the teachers would reprimand her. "Principal, can I go to the classroom to take a look? I just want to take a look. I won't disturb her. Is that okay?" Old Madam Yi immediately changed her mind to prevent the principal from reading her mind. "To be honest, I came here once last year, but the door was shut in my face. The child is all grown up, and we can't say anything. Sigh, I can only trouble the school to teach her." Outside the door, Principal Chun knocked on the door with a cold look on his face. He only pushed the door open when he heard Principal Chow say, "Come in." Before the door closed, Principal Chun smiled and said, "Which one of you is Yi Qian's grandmother? I've been teaching her for 4 years, but I've never seen her have a grandmother, nor have I heard of such a thing." "Principal Chow, you're not lying to me, are you? You don't know?" Principal Chow already knew what he was implying. He stood up from his desk and introduced, "This is Yi Qian's grandmother. You've been teaching in Fujian Town for so many years. How could you not know?" Even old Chun did not know about Yi Qian's grandmother. Things were even more fishy. Principal Chow's eyes darkened. He turned to Yi Jifan and introduced, "This is Yi Qian's uncle. I know him. As for this lady, she says she's Yi Qian's aunt." "Old Chun, don't tell me that you don't know her." Old Madam Yi couldn't help but blush when she said that she didn't know him and that she didn't know him. Both of them were saying that she did not care about the wretched girl and that there must be something wrong with her. "I know Mr. Yi. He used to be the mayor of Fujian Town. We're old friends." Principal Chin laughed heartily and reached out to shake hands with Yi Jifan politely. "Long time no see, Mr. Yi." Yi Jifan shook his hand politely. "Long time no see, Principal Chun. My mother just came back from the coastal area and wanted to meet her granddaughter. Who knew that the school didn't believe her? She's old and can't stand the stimulation. She just wants to see her granddaughter and leave. So this is Principal Chun." I know. Old Madam Yi stood up. Halfway through her sentence, she wiped the corner of her eyes with her handkerchief. I know. You've been taking care of my granddaughter. Thank you so much." It was another person who took care of the wretched lass. He didn't look like someone who was easy to get along with and talk to. Strike first to gain the initiative. Let's see what he has to say. Was there any justice in this world? A grandmother who came to visit her granddaughter was treated as a swindler. If she wasn't allowed to look, she wouldn't leave school today. Principal Chun sat in the guest chair and smiled faintly at old Madam Ye's gratitude. "This is Miss Jian's grandmother. She doesn't look like her grandmother. She and Miss Jian seem like people from 2 different worlds. Old Madam Yi is dressed in a dignified manner. Miss Jian doesn't look like old Madam Ye's granddaughter at all. The school uniform is the same throughout the year, and the school grants are all used to buy learning materials. Every dollar and a dime is spent." Hearing this, old Madam Ye's heart tightened. Not good. The man in front of her probably knew what was going on at home. She lowered her gaze slightly and looked at her own clothes. Old Madam Yi secretly gritted her teeth. Chapter 1156. No wonder the brat was becoming more and more disobedient. She had someone guiding her. "No, I must get the brat's household register today. Otherwise, if I let her go out again, she'll be a troublemaker in the future. She'll definitely be rebellious and make the family restless." "Chun." Old Madam Yi wanted to interrupt and speak up for herself, but Principal Chun looked up slightly. The hostility in his eyes was so strong that old Madam Yi almost bit her tongue. Principal Chun continued calmly. "Little Jian is studying in the town's middle school. I've observed her secretly. A pair of sandals has to be worn for 2 years, and a pair of canvas shoes has to be worn for 2 spring, autumn, and winter. On the other hand, Mr. Ye's daughter has new clothes and shoes all year round. It's obvious that she's loved by her grandmother and loved by her parents." "Old Madam, I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. Little Jian is a poor brat. How could she have a grandmother like you? I'm old and my memory isn't so good. And Mr. Yi, you're a cultured person. You should know that the college entrance examination is coming soon. 3rd-year high school students have to work hard in the last 40 days. No matter what happens outside, it shouldn't affect the student's studies. If I remember correctly, your daughter, Ying, should be." Throughout, Headmaster Chin spoke with a smile and did not say anything inappropriate. Literally speaking, he was just stating a fact and did not have any other intentions. He only wanted to express his own opinion and did not make any personal attacks. Those who weren't familiar with him wouldn't think too deeply about it. They would think that the old madam was old and confused. Those who knew the inside story will be able to understand the meaning behind her words. You, as a grandmother, dress so well, eat so well, and drink so much. On the other hand, your own granddaughter doesn't have a pair of new shoes or new clothes all year round. Even her school fees are funded by the school. How dare you jump out and say that you're Yi Jian's grandmother? Principal Chun had a good grasp of the rhythm of his words. There were a few times when old Madam Yi and Yi Zhixiang wanted to interrupt, but they were blocked by his next sentence. They could only listen the whole time and didn't have a chance to interrupt. After he finished speaking, old Madam Ye's face was very pale. This man knew everything about her family. He knew everything. If she continued, it would be his sophistry. No, I can't play the family card anymore. I can't play it anymore. If no one knew the inside story, she was confident that she could persuade the teachers. Now that there was someone who knew the inside story, the more she said, the more it would arouse the disgust of the school leaders and teachers. She had to change her method. Old Madam Yi was still trying to figure out a way to regain control of the situation when Yi Zhixiang couldn't help but say, "Is it necessary for all of you to know whether or not my mother is Yi Qian's grandmother? We're only looking for Yi Qian, not you. I advise you not to stretch your hands too far. Don't meddle too much. What do other people's family matters have to do with you?" Yi Zhixiang, who was finally able to speak, pulled a long face and scolded with arrogance. "This is my family's business. Why are you, an outsider, interfering?" Old Madam Yi did not stop her. Apart from the fact that her attitude could easily be caught, her daughter was telling the truth. Why should she let an outsider interfere with her family's business? Principal Chen glanced coldly at Yi Zhixiang. His eyes were filled with the hidden ruthlessness of a sniper. Yi Zhixiang was so frightened that her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't maintain the arrogance on her face. Chapter 11:57. As an outsider, it's not appropriate for me to meddle in your family's affairs. Moreover, I don't even know you. Why would I meddle in your family's affairs? Compared to Yi Zhixiang's rude and arrogant attitude, Principal Chun was much more cultured. Since you've mistaken me for someone else, then there's no need to look for Yi Qian. Principal Chun, I'm ashamed of what you just said. All these years, I really haven't fulfilled my responsibility to take care of my granddaughter. I also didn't think that she would run away from home because of her aunt. The corners of old Madam Ye's eyes were red from all the rubbing. She no longer tried to explain why she didn't take good care of Yi Qian. Instead, she cried bitterly and said that it was all her fault. I'm already old, and I don't care about that much. I just want to see my granddaughter. Principal Chow, I'm begging you. Let me see my granddaughter. Yes, I miss her so much. I haven't been home for a few years. Every time I called, her aunt would say that everything was fine at home. She told me not to worry. I believed her. Who knew that she was just lying to me? My granddaughter ran away from home and even moved her own household register out of the Yi family. I've let down my eldest son and my daughter-in-law who sacrificed herself for me. Old Madam Yi, who no longer used her silk handkerchief to wipe her tears, threw herself onto the armrest of the wooden sofa and cried. As she cried, she didn't forget to give Yi Zhifan a look. If they didn't force Yi Qian to come over, they wouldn't let the whole school know about this today. Seeing this, Yi Zhifan sighed and slowly opened his mouth. Principal Chun, my mother has been living with my sister in the coastal area. What about Yi Qian? Ever since she left my house, my wife was afraid that my mother would be angry, so she kept it from my mother and said that Yi Qian was fine at home. As he spoke, he revealed a bitter smile. I'm also partly responsible. I thought that my mother wouldn't come back, so I wanted to keep it a secret for as long as I could. In addition, Yi Qian has the school to take care of her. I thought that since we can't control her at home, we might as well let the school take care of her. Old Madam Ye's fists landed on Yi Zhifan's shoulders, one punch after another. Her fists came fast and furious. Even Yi Zhifan did not have time to react before his shoulders were hit several times. You're her uncle. I handed her over to you to take care of, but you forced my granddaughter to the point where she can't even see her grandmother. You're cutting a piece of flesh from my heart. Do you want me to be too ashamed to face your elder brother and sister-in-law after they pass away? Compared to son Dongqing's tantrum, Old Madam Ye's tantrum was brilliant. She was so brilliant that Principal Chow almost believed her. Fortunately, before he opened his mouth, he glanced at Principal Chun beside him and stopped in time. He sat quietly in the office chair and waited for the old lady to finish her act. 40 minutes after the Chinese literature exam, the campus was still quiet. After handing in his paper, Yi Qian hurriedly walked out of the teaching block and headed towards the teacher's office building. Just now, the music teacher said that her grandmother had found Teacher Tong and asked her if she should go and have a look. Grandma? What kind of grandma did she have? One who never cared about her and was even cruel enough to say to her son-in-law, "It's inauspicious to kick her to death at home. Put her outside. It's snowing heavily outside. Once the snow covers her, everything will be over." Grandma? Did she need this kind of grandma? Yi Qian went to the teacher's office first. When he realized that there was no one there, he thought for a while and quickly walked towards Principal Chow's office. Teacher Tong was marking the papers, so Old Madam Yu would not leave the school easily. The only place he could go was the principal's office. Chapter 1158. The principal's office was upstairs. Yi Qian took 2 steps at a time and stood at the door in less than 3 minutes. A voice came from inside. Yi Qian, who was about to knock on the door, paused. His beautiful face had a sharp look. Even his eyebrows were cold. "I want to see my good granddaughter. I haven't seen her in years. If I don't see her today, I won't leave the school. My granddaughter, Grandma, is here to see you. Grandma is here to see you." She was crying and shouting. She was addicted to acting. Teacher Tong chased after Yi Qian from behind. When Yi Qian raised his hand to knock on the door, she grabbed Yi Qian's wrist. "Why are you here? Go back to the classroom for the exam. Leave the adults' matters to the adults. Don't worry about the children's matters." Seeing Teacher Tong and Old Madam Ye's shameless crying, Yi Qian pursed his lips and said softly, "Teacher Tong, the person inside is indeed my grandma, but she can't be considered my grandma. My family situation is a bit complicated. If I didn't come, I was afraid that Principal Chow and Uncle Chen wouldn't know the truth and would be blamed by Old Madam Yi." She took down a key that was hanging together with the name tag. "Teacher Tong, can I trouble you to go home and get something very important for me?" She said softly what she needed to get. Teacher Tong's expression changed immediately. She said in shock, "Yi Qian, what do you want to do? Why do you want to get it? I don't understand your actions." The thing she needed to get was extremely important. Even as a teacher, she was shocked. "I don't know if it will be useful," but listen to her crying for no reason. She even mentioned my parents. She said that they didn't take good care of me and that she let them down. "Teacher Tong, they came today." The crying inside became louder. Old Madam Yi cried. "I couldn't even protect my eldest son's only child. I don't even have an account. I moved out to be someone else's daughter. I don't have the face to see anyone, and I don't have the face to see my eldest son who passed away so early. Today, they came here to take my household register. If my household register falls into the hands of a group of people who don't want to see me well, Teacher Tong." Before Yi Qian could finish speaking, Teacher Tong took the keys from her hand and said, "Okay, I'll ride the bicycle there. Bring it over as soon as possible. Your parents' spirits in the netherworld will definitely not watch you be harmed by a group of heartless relatives." After Teacher Tong left, Yi Qian knocked on the door with a cold look in his eyes and said in a clear voice, "Principal Chow, I'm Yi Qian." With Yi Qian's voice, the crying in the office stopped abruptly. Headmaster Chen's eyes darkened. "Who told Unyielding about this? She came here to distract her during the exam." Before Principal Chow could say "come in," Old Madam Yi, who was still acting, stopped crying. She stood up and rushed to the door. As she opened the door, she called out, "My dear granddaughter, my darling." It seemed that she was so excited by Yi Qian's arrival that she was incoherent. When the door opened, Yi Qian saw a figure in a good mood rushing towards him. He leaned slightly to the side and avoided Old Madam Ye's hug. He nimbly slipped into the office. Old Madam Ye almost fell to the ground when she missed. It took her a lot of effort to stabilize herself. When Yi Zhixiang saw Yi Qian coming in, Her eyes were filled with unconcealable hatred. Yi Qian, do you have any conscience? You little bastard, where did you study? If anything happens to my mother, I'll never let you off. Chapter 1159. She said, my mother, not your grandmother. Principal Chow's eyes flashed. He could tell from her words that their relationship wasn't just bad. Yi Qian's family didn't treat her as family. No wonder old Chun didn't say anything nice. She was ostracized by her family at such a young age. Fortunately, she met old Chun. Otherwise, her life would have been ruined. In her previous life, Yi Qian was controlled by son Dongqing and Ying. She didn't meet Principal Chun, so her life was ruined. Principal Chow finally had an idea. He pretended to be scared and said to Yi Qian, hurry and help the old lady up. It doesn't matter if she's your grandmother or not. We have to respect the old and love the young. I'm sorry. I'm not used to interacting with people I'm not familiar with. Yi Qian readily apologized and said to Yi Xiang, it's because I'm educated that I know how to be polite. That's why I'm standing here today and didn't quarrel with Madame Yi. Hearing this, Yi Xiang didn't raise her hand to slap Yi Jian like she did in the hotel last time. Instead, she glared at Yi Jian and hurried over to support old Madame Yi, who was feeling a little dizzy. Mom, why are you sitting up? Don't you know that you have high blood pressure and can't get up? Her voice was neither loud nor soft. It was loud enough for everyone in the office to hear. No matter how agitated you are, you have to take care of your body. Don't make me and my brother worry. Yi Jifan, who was called out, said calmly, Mom, Yi Qian is here. Sit down and talk. She then looked at Yi Qian. You can refuse to acknowledge me as your uncle, but you can't refuse to acknowledge your grandmother. Your father is her son, and you are her granddaughter. There's no granddaughter in the world who doesn't acknowledge her. You're already in your 3rd year of high school. You can't be as ignorant as you were when you were in your 2nd year of junior high school. Also, you said that after studying, you know that people need to be polite. Since you know that, you should know that you can't make your grandmother sad. Principal Chun did not like what he heard. He looked at Yi Jifan with a faint smile. Mr. Yi, you're wrong again. Compared to Yi Qian, who was taught by Uncle Jin and me, Yi Qian is more sensible and polite. No matter what, Yi Qian will always look at the big picture. Principal Chun, let's talk about Yi Qian now. Please don't mention my daughter again. Yi Jifan's face turned cold as he said in a low voice, my daughter is not your student, nor is she a student of the province's #1 middle school. Why do you have to say that my daughter is not as good as Yi Qian? Then, may I ask, what right does Mr. Yi have to say that I'm rude? Yi Qian interrupted. I have no relationship with Mr. Yi. What right do you have to say that to me? Yi Jifan, who choked on his words, bit his cheeks and began to put on weight. His handsome face was not as handsome as it was when he was young. Instead, it was covered with a thick layer of haze. After a while, he replied, you have a sharp tongue. He still had to consider his status in front of Principal Chow of the province's #1 middle school. After all, the province was holding an education conference, and principals of famous schools often interacted with high officials like the provincial governor. If one day he mentioned this to the provincial governor and made things difficult for him, he would inevitably be criticized. Old Madame Ye's cloudy eyes became even darker. Her legs seemed to tremble as she sat down. She stared at Yi Qian without blinking, as if she was looking at someone else through him. She looked like her, even more so than the last time she saw her. She looked exactly like her mother, who had passed away early. Her facial features were similar, but she was more delicate, more beautiful, and more charming. Chapter 1160. Her temperament was similar, but she was even more stubborn than her mother. Looking at this face, old Madame Yi recalled how Sun Xueqing didn't listen to her mother-in-law's teachings. The anger in old Madame Ye's heart wouldn't dissipate. Great, she hadn't disciplined anyone for many years. She didn't believe that she couldn't discipline an 18 or 19-year-old girl today. It's fine, it's fine. As long as our little girl is happy, it's fine. Mom is old. It's nothing to be wronged. Old Madam Yi gently wiped her tears. She quickly wiped the corners of her eyes with a silk handkerchief embroidered with lotus flowers and scriptures. She held it in her hand, ready to wipe her tears at any time. Her gaze fell on Yi Qian for a long time. When Yi Qian raised his eyebrows and looked over, Old Madam Ye's eyes moved slightly. She stared meaningfully at Yi Qian again before calmly looking away. No matter how good she was only 18 or 19. She wanted to see how she could maintain her image as a good student in front of the principal. Teacher Tong knocked on the door with a black backpack. When she came in, the atmosphere in the office was at its worst. Yi Qian ignored Old Madam Ye's words with his cold attitude. He even snorted disdainfully. Yi Jifan, on the other hand, saw a trace of interest. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Old Madam Ye's methods came one after another. She was much better than Sun Dongqing, who only knew how to make a scene. Who knows, maybe he could really get Yi Qian's household register today. As long as he got the household register, he could openly change her university aspirations as her guardian. She wouldn't even be able to attend a third-rate university. After witnessing Yi Qian's power at Caesar Hotel, Yi Zhixiang, who had some misgivings, chose to remain silent. She slanted her eyes and looked over with disdain, waiting to watch a good show. Yi Qian, who saw their expressions, curled his lips slightly. He stood obediently beside Principal Chun and said softly, "Uncle Chun, she's not my grandmother. I don't have a grandmother, an aunt, or an uncle. Don't be afraid, Uncle Chin knows. You shouldn't have come. You should focus on your exams." Principal Chun sighed and said to Principal Chow, "I'll leave with Yi Qian first. Please take care of them." Principal Chow nodded with a cold expression. "Okay, I'll take care of this matter. Take Yi Qian and leave. Girl, if you'll forgive me, for your parents, I'll kneel to you." Old Madam Yi was really cruel to herself. She had no choice. She had promised Yi Jifan that she would either get Yi Qian's household register before the college entrance exam, or she would make a scene so that the whole school would point fingers at her and the wretched girl wouldn't be able to take the college entrance exam in peace. It was just a scene. After she finished speaking, she really knelt on the ground. Yi Jifan quickly squatted down to help her up. "Mom, please don't make things difficult for us. If you kneel to your own granddaughter and beg for forgiveness, how will Yi Qian face the whole school in the future?" Yi Zhixiang obviously didn't expect her mother to be so cruel. She was stunned for a moment and said sharply, "Yi Qian, you bastard! You let your own grandmother kneel to you. Are you even human? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" Her voice was so sharp and loud that it could be heard from across the office. Chapter 1161. Yi Jifan also shouted, "Yi Qian, what's the point of studying so many books? You don't even know the basics of loyalty, filial piety, etiquette, and righteousness. No matter how much you study, no matter how good your grades are, it's useless. The provincial first high school has such a disloyal and unfilial student like you. It's a disgrace to the century-old school." Back then, didn't his daughter, Yi Ying, bring shame to the century-old school? Today, he wanted to see who was the one who brought shame to the century-old school. Yi Jifan had never forgotten that Yi Ying had to transfer out of the provincial first high school because of the military training. Now that the opportunity had come, he naturally had to shout, "Let me kneel, let me kneel. My granddaughter is angry. She has no one to complain about her grievances. As an uncle, you didn't protect her. As an aunt, you mistreated her. You can't even tolerate your sister's only bloodline. I was blind to believe you too. It's all my fault, all my fault." How could old Madam Yi really kneel? When Yi Jifan stopped her, she took the opportunity to sit on the floor. She kept saying, "I'm wrong," and "I'm guilty," causing the entire office to become restless. "If you really want to kneel, I won't stop you." Amidst the commotion, Yi Qian's cold voice sounded. She walked over to old Madam Yi and opened the black backpack that Teacher Tong had brought in. When she took out the things inside, Yi Qian immediately screamed. She was so scared that she screamed. Yi Jifan's gaze fell on her. He didn't scream, but his scalp tensed up. She actually took out Yi Xinfan's photo and Sun Xueqing's photo. Old Madam Yi, you did wrong, my father. If you didn't force my father to go out and earn money, he wouldn't have died. If my mother didn't seek justice for my father, she wouldn't have sacrificed herself. You did wrong, my parents, and I really don't want to acknowledge you. Do you know why I don't want to acknowledge you? Yi Qian's voice was as cold as ice. He looked down at the three frightened men and said slowly, "Because my father is not your son." Grandpa Jin called. He sighed and said, "Little girl, you don't have to worry about your grandmother coming here. Your father is not her son, and you are not her granddaughter. Grandpa is telling you now, so you should know what to do." Yi Qian wasn't surprised at all by the words, "Your father isn't her son." He only said, as expected. In her past life, she had suspected that her father was not old Madam Ye's biological son. Otherwise, why would he pick on her family? Just because my father isn't your biological son, you don't like him and pick on him everywhere. You clearly know that my father's health is not good. When he came back from outside, the hospital said that he needs to rest for half a year. But what did you say? You said that the family doesn't raise useless people. He has hands and feet, but he doesn't know how to earn money. What's the point of staying at home? You also said that if he doesn't go out to work, you might as well sell him and use this useless person to exchange for some money. With every word Yi Qian said, old Madam Ye's face paled. She didn't dare to look at Yi Xinfan in the photo. She didn't dare to look because she felt guilty, because she was scared. How could it be? How could it be? How could this wretched girl know all this? How did she know? Who told her? Chapter 1162. Yi Zhixiang was even more scared than old Madam Yi, especially when Yi Qian approached her with the photo. Yi Zhixiang was so scared that she screamed, "Take it away! Take it away! Yi Qian, you wretched girl, take that stupid photo away! Take it away!" Her screams were heart-wrenching. It was obvious how scared she was. "Madam Yi, what are you scared of? Weren't you so arrogant when you scolded my dad back then? Now that he's gone, there's only one photo left. What are you scared of?" Yi Qian's face was expressionless. He was cold and said, "Madam Yi, you're scared of the photo. What are you trying to say?" Yi Zhixiang, who was dressed in red, was no longer as arrogant as she was at the school gate. With her hair disheveled, she didn't even dare to look at Yi Qian. Whatever Yi Qian said was automatically ignored by her. She only knew how to hide behind old Madam Yi. Principal Chun and Principal Chow were both surprised. They both looked at Teacher Tong. Teacher Tong had brought the black bag in and handed it to Yi Qian. How could Teacher Tong agree to Yi Qian's shocking actions? "Don't look at me like that. I'm also..." Sigh. As a teacher, how could she agree to it? However, this was a serious matter. If she could really protect Yi Jian from being threatened and hurt, she thought that Yi Jian's parents would be willing to use this method to protect their daughter in the underworld. She briefly explained how she met Yi Qian at the school gate and how she persuaded her to retrieve the photo of Yi Qian's parents. When she finished, Teacher Tong couldn't hide her heartache. She said softly, "I'm also a parent. How can I watch my daughter's future be ruined by someone else?" "I agree. As a parent, I agree to Yi Qian's request." Principal Chin's mouth was dry. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, Teacher Tong." It was because of his teacher who treated Yi Qian like her own child that she believed in Yi Qian unconditionally. "You're too polite. Protecting the students is also the responsibility of us teachers." Teacher Tong shook her head slightly and looked at the three people who were stunned by Yi Qian. She lowered her voice and said, "Do you need us to step in?" "No, let Yi Qian handle it." Principal Chun refused without hesitation. Unyielding wouldn't do something for no reason, and she wouldn't suddenly ask for a photo of her parents. Her expression looked cold, but there was a hint of sadness between her brows. It was so thick that it couldn't be dissolved. There must be another reason for doing this. Before they figured it out, it was best for them not to make a move. The atmosphere in the office suddenly reached the peak of tension. It was like setting off a high-temperature explosive, making everyone's heartstrings tense. Yi Zhixiang's screams were still ringing in the air. A woman's voice was sharp to begin with, and now that she was screaming in fear, everyone's eardrums hurt. Originally, old Madame Yi wasn't afraid of the photos because Yi Qian had suddenly revealed her secret. However, with Yi Zhixiang's screams in her ears, she couldn't help but be affected. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Then, her gaze fell on one of the black and white photos. Old Madame Yi looked at the young man's face in the photo. As she looked, old Madame Yi couldn't help but feel her scalp go numb. That damn girl was right. Yi Xinfan really wasn't her son. She had never thought of Yi Xinfan as her son. He was just a beggar who was brought back from the outside. If she hadn't brought him back in a moment of desperation to raise him as Yi Xinfan, he might have starved to death on the streets. She was already kind enough to bring him back and give him a meal. Chapter 1163. Old Madame Yi had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Her eldest son was Yi Zhifan, her second son was Yi Zhifan, and her youngest daughter was Yi Zhixiang. To this day, everyone in the village believed that her 2 sons and 1 daughter were old Madame Yi's biological children. No one had ever suspected that her 2 sons were not her biological children. Old Madame Yi had always thought that no one knew about this secret. She had brought Yi Xinfan back to the village from a city, other than her own father, who knew that he was not her biological child, and a few of the older generation knew a little about it. As the older generation passed away one by one, the fact that Yi Xinfan was not her biological child was buried in the earth. No one ever brought it up again. Even if the older generation knew a little about it and suspected that Yi Xinfan was not her biological child, they would never have thought that the Yi Xinfan she brought back was not her uncle's son. The night she went to the city to pick up Yi Xinfan, because she was afraid that she would be implicated by her uncle, and because she was young at the time and thought that her sister-in-law was better than herself, she saw that the couple was in trouble. For some reason, she left the 4-year-old Yi Xinfan at an unknown bus station. After she was done, she hurriedly searched for him, but Yi Xinfan was nowhere to be found. At that point, she walked around the dilapidated street in fear and panic. When she saw a little beggar about the same size, she hardened her heart and carried the little beggar back to the village, afraid that she wouldn't be able to report back to her superiors. Those years were too turbulent. Even now, there were still many things that she could not explain or explain. As time passed, the truth of the matter was buried in the river of time. No one brought it up again. Old Madame Yi did not think about it anymore. She had even forgotten that she had done such a heartless thing when she was young. Now that Yi Qian had suddenly brought it up, how could old Madame Yi not be shocked? What shocked her even more was that she did not expect Yi Qian to remember everything she had said so clearly. Yi Qian's gaze was extremely clear and sharp. When he looked at her, he felt like there was nowhere to hide. No matter how pitiful old Madame Yi had pretended to be, he did not pity her at all. You've always disliked my parents and me. I didn't understand why you spoiled Yi Zhixiang so much before, but now I understand. My father isn't your son at all. I'm not your son, so of course I wouldn't feel bad for him. My dad was injured and needed to rest, but you scolded him one day and stabbed him the next. An honest man sat alone in his room until dawn, carrying a few clothes and coughing as he left home to earn money. The money I earned didn't go to my mother. You kept it all. Old Madame Yi, you sold my father's life for money. Tell me, why should I acknowledge you? Why should I recognize you? The last 2 sentences, why should I recognize you, were filled with hostility and sharpness. Yi Zhixiang screamed again in shock. Old Madame Yi was so shocked that she took 2 steps back without caring about her image. Yi Qian, who had been on the battlefield and killed people before, not only was there hostility between her brows, there was also a bloodthirsty coldness. Sometimes she was not good at hiding her emotions. Even Teacher Tong would be shocked when she saw this. This time, looking at old Madame Yi's obviously vicious and disgusting face that was pretending to be kind, and recalling the past that she could never forget in her 2 lifetimes, the viciousness in her heart, the bloodthirstiness in her eyes, and the murderous aura in her voice were like the rising tide of the sea, rushing towards her face with a steaming momentum. Even the elderly old Madame Yi was so frightened that layers of cold sweat appeared on her back. Chapter 1164. In the yellowed black and white photo, Yi Xinfan had an unnatural smile on his face as he stared at old Madame Yi, who had retreated to the edge of the sofa. He seemed to be smiling, but at the same time, he seemed to be crying. Old Madame Yi was so shocked that she turned her head away, not daring to look at him. One of the photos Yi Qian took out was of her father, and the other was of her mother. When the two photos were placed side by side, no one would think that they were husband and wife. Yi Xinfan's features were plain and unadorned. There was no trace of him on Yi Qian. On the other hand, Sun Xueqing's features were beautiful. She wore a Type 71 military cap with a 5-pointed star in the middle. Her bright eyes and white teeth exuded the heroic spirit of a soldier. With the two photos in front of her, even though old Madame Yi looked away, her mind was still rapidly switching between the two people in the photos. One moment, it was Yi Xinfan. The next moment, it was Sun Xueqing. Where her mind froze on Yi Xinfan's photo, old Madame Yi suddenly shivered. Her hands couldn't help but tremble. Old Madame Yi, so you know fear too. How could the changes on her face be hidden from Yi Qian? Seeing her facial muscles twitching slightly, Yi Qian's voice became even sharper. There's not a day that you don't think of my father as your son. There's not a day that you don't want to take advantage of my family. In the end, you drove my father to his death. Old Madame Yi, your retribution has long been waiting for you. And I will wait for you to receive your retribution. Retribution? That wretched girl said that she would receive her retribution. Old Madame Yi, who was looking away, heard this, and her face instantly twisted. Her eyes were ferocious as she stared at Yi Qian, who was not afraid of her at all. Principal Chao saw the ferocity in her eyes. She no longer had the kind and amiable look from before. It was clearly a sharp and mean face. He almost believed her words. That was close, that was close. Luckily, Yi Qian came himself. Otherwise, even if Old Chen was here, he might not have believed Old Chen completely. Principal Chao, who was secretly wiping away his cold sweat, sighed softly. His eyes were filled with pity as he looked at the slender figure standing proudly in the middle of the office. It really wasn't easy for Yi Qian to get to where he was today. Principal Chao let out a long sigh in his heart. It wasn't easy at all. At this moment, old Madame Yi wished she could charge forward and give Yi Qian a few tight slaps. She actually cursed her own grandmother to suffer retribution. How could she have such guts? Who gave her the guts to go against her? Even Yi Xinfan and Sun Xueqing had never dared to curse her like this. It had to be said that Yi Qian had hit the nail on the head. Some people became calmer as they got older, while some people became more suspicious as they got older. Old Madame Yi, who had a strong desire for control, belonged to the latter. In his previous life, he had done so many evil deeds that he had never let go of his Buddhist beads when he was old. He was delusional to think that he had the protection of the Dharma and the protection of the Bodhisattva so that he could have peace of mind in his old age. That year at the Caesar Hotel, Yi Qian had noticed the shiny prayer beads in her hands when she met old Madame Yi for the first time. At that time, she wondered if wearing this string of prayer beads every day was a sign of repentance to her father. After thinking about it, she felt that she was overthinking things. With old Madame Yi's personality, how could she feel repentance toward a son she didn't like? In her previous life, she didn't have the ability to go against the Yi family. Even though she knew that her father had died in an accident because of old Madame Yi, she didn't have the ability to go back and seek justice. The things that she had always wanted to do in her previous life had become an obsession in this life. She couldn't forget it. One day, she would hold her parents' portraits and ask old Madame Yi if she felt any repentance. Reality proved that she was too naive. Chapter 1165. How could a person without a conscience feel repentance? What's more, the person she forced to death wasn't even her own son. Of course, Old Madam Yi didn't feel any remorse, but she was truly frightened by Yi Qian. Retribution. She was most afraid of retribution. Old Madam Yi was so frightened that her heart was beating erratically. She grabbed Yi Jifan's arm tightly, hinting for him to break the stalemate. Yi Qian, you're too daring. Yi Jifan didn't show much fear. His elder brother and sister-in-law's early deaths had nothing to do with him. He calmly reprimanded. Where did you hear that from? Your father is my elder brother, your grandmother's son. How can you say he's not my father? As expected, he wasn't easy to deal with. With her move, the school leaders and teachers wouldn't easily step in. Yi Jifan, who was the calmest of the three, was vexed. He put on the airs of an elder and reprimanded her again. Yi Qian, you casually took out your parents' portraits. Unfilial son is heartless, even more vicious than a scorpion. His scolding wasn't light. As an official, he didn't swear, but his words were 100 times worse than a swear word. Faced with the scolding, Yi Qian lightly sneered. Unfilial son? Mr. Yi, you're talking about yourself. Since you're old Madam Ye's son, how could you allow her to live outside with her own daughter? And how could you allow your own wife to insult old Madam Yi in front of you? In the Yi family, I've heard a lot of those insults. Unfilial son is heartless, even more vicious than a scorpion. Mr. Yi, I'll return the favor. Yi Qian's reaction to arguments was exceptional. There were only words she didn't want to say, but nothing she couldn't say. In an instant, Yi Jifan's face turned ashen. He stared at his niece, who made him more and more confused. After a while, he coldly snorted and said to the pale-faced old Madam Yi, Mom, let's go back first. Yi Jixiang didn't even dare to raise her head. She was afraid to see the viciousness in Yi Qian's eyes, as well as the murderous intent that terrified her. Mom, let's go, let's go. That wretched girl is a lunatic, just like her mother. Let's go, let's go. Yi Qian's shock wasn't normal. It was so great that it was abnormal. Her words made Yi Qian's cold eyes sharpen. His gaze shot towards Yi Jixiang like an arrow. Yi Qian, who had no intention of letting them leave, saw her figure flash past. Her movements were so fast that it was a blur. In the blink of an eye, she had blocked their path. Didn't you want to take away my household registration? Why are you leaving so soon? Not only did she block them, but she also grabbed Yi Jixiang's wrist with lightning speed. Her gaze was bone-chilling. Madam Yi, back then you and Sun Yaozu wanted to beat me to death. Now that you have money and power, why don't you dare? Her grip was so strong that Yi Jixiang didn't even notice it. However, it was already too late. Yi Jixiang screamed in pain as her wrist was gripped so tightly that her bones hurt. When did I say I was going to kill you? Let go of me. Let go. Didn't you come here to find trouble with me? I'm here, and I took the initiative to ask you to stay. Shouldn't you be happier? As Yi Qian spoke, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I still have over 40 days before the college entrance exam. I don't want to waste any more time with you. Chapter 1166. Yi Jian's voice seemed to penetrate every nook and cranny of the room. Her voice was laced with a bone-chilling coldness that spread to every corner of the room and pierced into Yi Jixiang's body like needles. She couldn't escape even if she wanted to. Those two colorless photos. No, she didn't want to see them. She didn't want to see them. What does your college entrance exam have to do with me? Damn girl, let go of me. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Let go, let go. The more Yi Jixiang scolded her, the stronger Yi Jian's grip became. Yi Jian, who could carry a heavy weapon and run, had a lot of strength in her grip. With a little more force, Yi Jixiang screamed like a pig being slaughtered. It hurt, it hurt, it hurt too much. She felt like her bones were being crushed. Her screams made old Madam Ye's relaxed face twitch. She scolded, How old are you? Why are you screaming? Shut up. Yi Jixiang, who was in pain and flustered, couldn't shut up. She immediately retorted, Damn girl, you're so strong that you're going to crush my bones. Mom, pull her away. Listen, is this something an adult would say? A woman in her 30s or 40s can't even compare to a little girl. She can't keep her cool at all. Old Madame Ye's eyelids drooped. Her triangular eyes flashed fiercely. When she raised her head again, she looked at Yi Qian with tears in her eyes. Child, don't scare your aunt. Quickly put away your parents' photos. Did you hear that? Damn girl, get away from me. What's so good about a pair of short-lived ghosts? Yi Zhixiang didn't dare to look at them. She turned her head away and tried to pull her hand back. She didn't pull her hand back the first time. Yi Zhixiang screamed, even louder. Yi Qian, what are you trying to do? Murder. Someone trying to kill someone. Someone come quickly. Someone come quickly. Her screams were extraordinarily loud and filled with incomprehensible horror. She seemed very afraid of seeing Yi Qian's parents' photos. Old Madame Yi was also very afraid. Not only was she afraid, but both mother and daughter looked flustered. Their eyes flickered to Yi Qian's face from time to time, as if they were searching for something. Yi Qian's eyes darkened. Something was wrong, very wrong. Just now, he was angered by old Madame Ye's lack of remorse, so he didn't pay attention to their unusual reactions when she took out the photos. Yi Qian's eyes, and he recalled what happened. That old Madame Ye's pupils constricted, and her facial expression stiffened. Then, her lips trembled slightly, and she hurriedly averted her gaze. As for her hands, that's right, as she clenched her fists, her unnatural expression hid a deep panic. What was she shocked about? What was she panicking about? Yi Zhixiang's expression was full of fear. She didn't dare to face it. But when she said, "Old Madame Yi, you did wrong to my father. If you didn't force my father to go out and earn money, he wouldn't have died." There was also a trace of relief in the mother and daughter's shocked expressions. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Why was there relief? When she said, "My father isn't your son," old Madame Ye's face turned pale. She was scared again. This time, there was even a trace of guilt. Fear, panic, relief, guilt. She could understand fear, panic, and guilt, but she couldn't explain why there was also relief. Chapter 1167. There's a problem. There must be a problem. Yi Qian pursed his lips and stared at Yi Zhixiang coldly. He stared at her until she bit her lower lip and straightened her body. Her head was twisted so much that her neck was about to be dislocated. Seeing her daughter so easily frightened, old Madame Yi pressed her daughter's shoulder. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have let her come. That wretched girl didn't seem to know anything. She shouldn't scare herself and let her find out more. Zhixiang, you're her aunt. Don't be so alarmed. Little Jian isn't close to us. If you scream again, how could she be close to you in the future? She hinted at Yi Zhixiang to calm down and stop screaming. It's just your brother and sister-in-law. We're family. What's there to be afraid of? Didn't you plan to go to the martyrs' cemetery tomorrow to pay your respects? Now that you've seen the photo, you should bow properly to show your remembrance. Yi Zhixiang wasn't willing, but old Madame Ye's fingers tightened around her shoulders. She knew that no matter how much she resisted, she had no choice but to lower her head. She bent, lowered her head, and bowed to the black and white photo. Even so, she never looked directly at it. Seeing this, Yi Qian didn't let go of her hand. Instead, he tightened his grip. Old Madame Yi clenched her teeth and sighed. You're too extreme. If your parents were still alive, they would be so sad. Your father was diligent, and your mother worked for the country and the people. Child, you should learn from your parents. Learn how they lowered their heads in front of her. Learn how to be honest. How could old Madame Yi say the words in her heart out loud? She could only harshly mutter them in her heart. Behind the tears, the pair of murky eyes that were filled with scheming were rolling with ominous clouds. This wretched girl was far more difficult to deal with than she had imagined. She had to stay calm. She hadn't panicked or messed up after so long. It was as if she had been waiting for her to come. Luckily, she only knew this one thing. Just now, she was really scared and thought that she knew something else. She glanced coldly at Yi Zhixiang. Seeing that she wasn't panicking anymore, old Madame Yi finally calmed down. Now that she knew that her father wasn't her biological son, and that her teacher was helping her, She couldn't do anything to her teacher. She had to think of another way. In the dark, old Madame Yi glanced at Yi Jifan, who had a dark expression on his face. She saw him glance at the silent teacher Tong and then shake his head subtly. His meaning was obvious. His teacher was not going to help them convince Yi Qian. Looking at Yi Qian's stubborn behavior, old Madame Yi, who had been scheming in her heart, suddenly smiled. Those who are too hard will break easily, while those who are soft will never be defeated. Since the wretched girl had such a stubborn personality, he might as well let her break herself. There was no need to dirty his hands. Old Madame Yi raised her well-maintained but slightly withered hand and placed it on Yi Qian's wrist. She said softly, "So what if old man Jin told you everything? Your father has been my son for more than 10 years. How can you say no just because you say no?" Earlier, she was still pretending to show off her familial love. Now, she suddenly revealed her poisonous tongue. Yi Qian, who was holding his parents' portrait, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He didn't need to guess to know that this vicious old lady was scheming again. No matter what she was scheming, he would definitely make her return empty-handed today. She would come here with her head held high and leave the school with her tail between her legs. Chapter 1168. Your father's my son. I could do whatever I want with him. He's just a wild thing that came out of nowhere. What about your mother? So what if she has a fiery temper? At least I'm still alive. She's already dead and turned into a pile of bones. She had a fiery temper, right? Fine. I'll just say things that you don't like to hear. I want to see how a 19-year-old girl can keep her composure. Old Madame Yi purposely lowered her voice at the beginning, but as she slowly tightened her grip on Yi Qian's wrist, her voice gradually became louder and filled with the helplessness of an elderly person. Little Jian, you can't explain what happened over the past 10 years. Your father's surname is Yi, and so is your surname. Whether you admit it or not, everyone in the village knows that your father is my son and you're my granddaughter. No one can change this. You have to admit it even if you don't want to. You're still young, and it's easy for you to trust the wrong people. At this point, old Madame Ye's gaze drifted to Principal Chun before she continued sadly. Grandma doesn't blame you for being insensible. I don't blame you for not coming out to meet me. But child, no matter how far you go or how close you are to outsiders, your surname is still Yi. Her tone was filled with sorrow. In a few words, she had described Yi Qian as an unfilial son who didn't even acknowledge his ancestors. Headmaster Chun, who was insinuated as a bad guy, calmly raised his eyes. Seeing that Yi Jian did not show any signs of anger on her face, a faint smile appeared on his resolute face that had been through many hardships. Old Madame Yi was indeed someone. No wonder her daughter and son-in-law had to rely on her for so many years. She couldn't do anything to the teacher, so she came up with the idea of angering Yi Qian. It was true that they wanted to take away Yi Qian's household registration, but their ultimate goal was to ruin little Jian's future. On the eve of the college entrance exam, all the candidates were protected like pandas by the school and their parents, afraid that a slight distraction would affect the exam. Last year, the grandfather of a candidate from the provincial first high school passed away. In order not to affect the candidate's revision, the whole family kept it a secret and only brought the candidate to his grandfather's grave to kowtow after the exam. They didn't even dare to say that a relative had passed away, afraid that the candidate would fail the exam. On the other hand, old Madame Yi used the excuse of looking after her granddaughter. On the surface, she missed her granddaughter so much that she fell ill, but in reality, she had an ulterior motive. They only wanted to ruin Yi Qian's college entrance exam. If Principal Chun could see it, Principal Chow and Teacher Tong could see it even more clearly. Chapter 1169. Yi Qian tightened his grip on Yi Zhixiang's wrist. Her screams were ringing in his ears, but he didn't even raise his eyebrows as he said indifferently, "I'm afraid of me. If I'm not careful, I'll teach these bad guys a lesson. For example, just listen to your daughter's voice. Isn't it miserable? To fight with old Madame Yi, one had to see who was more ruthless, more steady, and more patient. In comparison, old Madame Yi, who loved her daughter as much as her own life, was not as calm as Yi Qian. However, she was already 60 years old and had seen too much. Her heart was thick and hard, as if it had been branded with a layer of rust. Even if she couldn't bear to see her daughter in pain, she wouldn't be as impatient as Sun Dongqing. Little Jian, are you really not afraid? Afraid? Who's the one who's afraid now? Yi Qian smiled as he asked. His expression was a little cold, but his beautiful eyebrows were calm. My household register is not under your name. You can't interfere with anything I do. You can't even do anything when I don't want to see you. You think I'm afraid? Do I need to be afraid? Hearing this, old Madame Yi felt a sharp pain in her heart. This damned girl. Acting so presumptuously in front of her. She really wasn't Yi Xinfan's child. The angrier the other party was, the calmer Yi Qian became. Looking for trouble? Trying to control her? Then try it. Listening to the old and young exchange back and forth, seeing that the old one didn't have the upper hand, Teacher Tong finally relaxed a little. She was no longer worried that her student would be at a disadvantage. Yi Qian, the most outstanding student in the province's first high school of '96. None of the teachers doubted her, and none of her classmates doubted her. In the 2 years of high school, she never let the teachers worry about her, nor did she disappoint them. If she said she could solve it, then the teachers would believe her. Only old Madame Ye's heavy breathing could be heard in the office. Even Yi Zhixiang had quieted down. As for Yi Zhifan, he wouldn't interfere rashly to avoid falling into Principal Chao's hands. The reason why Yi Zhifan was able to get to where he was today was not only because he had someone secretly supporting him, but also because he had a certain level of ability. If he was a hopeless case, how could the person behind the jade pendant help him? He secretly observed Principal Chen's expression and saw that there wasn't the slightest bit of worry on his face. Instead, when he noticed that he was observing him, he glanced at him and gave him a faint smile. Smile? How could he still laugh? Wasn't Chen Dongfeng worried about Yi Qian? Something was not quite right. Logically speaking, they should be worried, but each and every one of them maintained a calm expression. Even their gazes were so indifferent, without the slightest bit of worry. The more he looked, the more Yi Zhifan felt that something was amiss. As he supported old Madame Yi, he could not help but remind her in a low voice, "Mom, they don't seem to be worried about Yi Qian. Do you think there's a problem?" Yi Zhifan, who had a clear understanding of the officialdom, clearly understood that this was the time to unite against an external enemy. He would definitely remind them if he needed to. "Don't worry." Old Madame Yi hinted with her eyes, and the coldness in her eyes deepened. That damn girl was more than difficult to deal with. She clearly knew what she was worried about. However, he didn't know what she was worried about. What was she worried about? What exactly was she worried about? There must be something. There must be something. Old Madame Ye's brain was not rusty. Her cloudy eyes were gloomy, like a piece of wood buried in the ground, emitting a rotting smell. Principal Chen was completely relieved. He could clearly see that in front of the girl, old Madame Yi, who was full of airs, could not gain any advantage at all. Instead, from time to time, she would be angered by Yi Qian until her face turned ashen. Chapter 1170. Old Madame Ye's plan to provoke Yi Qian and make him do something inappropriate was indeed brilliant. Unfortunately, no matter how good she was at scheming, she would never have guessed that Yi Qian had undergone special training to be able to control his temper at all times and calmly deal with any unexpected situations. Old Madame Yi, who couldn't think of a solution, glanced at her hand that was tightly gripping Yi Qian's wrist, and a sinister look flashed across her eyes. There was only one way, which was to provoke her and make her do something inappropriate. Her sinister old eyes flashed with scheming, and with a stuffy nose, she said in a muffled voice, "Yi Qian, you may be able to cause a ruckus now, but that won't be the case in the future. Without a home, you'll lose your roots. Do you really want to make everyone lose face? Do you really think that you've won just because you've caused a ruckus? No, even if you win, you'll tarnish your reputation. Do you understand? At the age of 18 or 19, she cared about her reputation. If she caused a ruckus and was made fun of by both boys and girls, would she still be able to continue being arrogant? If she listened this time, then everyone would be happy. If she didn't, there was no need to rush. There was still another move waiting for her. Old Madam Yi had seen countless people and had her own way of judging people. She was able to turn her daughter's small business into a big business because she had both strategies and methods. If one plan didn't work, she would come up with another one in a matter of minutes. She was even better at scheming within scheming and scheming within scheming, making it impossible to guard against. There was hardness within softness, viciousness within hardness, and viciousness within viciousness. Every move came one after another. I heard that your grades are good and that you intend to get into a good university. What if someone writes a letter about what happened today to your future university? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to survive in a new environment? Standing in the middle, she purposely kept her voice low so that only Yi Qian could hear her. Even Yi Zhifan, who was next to her, didn't see her lips move. Yi Qian, you're still young. You don't know the power of rumors and slanders. Rumors are an invisible weapon that kills people. If you don't listen to me and the whole school hears that a good student doesn't even acknowledge your grandmother, what do you think your classmates will think of you? She wasn't afraid that an 18 or 19-year-old girl would be so calm. He had to make her afraid. The orphan who left her home treated the school as her home. If there came a day when the school that she treated as her home could no longer accommodate her, she would like to see if she could still straighten her back and speak to her with a cold and arrogant expression. At that time, the school won't tolerate you, and you won't be able to return home. What's the point of living then? How dare you threaten me with your parents' photos? Little Jian, you're too naive. You can't do anything to me when you're alive. Do you think you can do anything to me when you're dead? A trap within a trap, and a trap within a trap. Yi Qian had chosen not to make a fuss, and had also fallen in her trap. But if Yi Qian had really made a fuss, then it would have been even better for old Madam Yi. I only hope that you'll make a bigger fuss. Who would be affected by a high school student yelling at his own grandmother? Old Madam Yi sneered as she looked at the young face in front of her. So what if she was like Sun Xueqing? Back then, the word filial piety had suppressed her. Now, it could still suppress her daughter. Seeing Yi Qian's face gradually turn gloomy, old Madam Yi thought that she had the upper hand and said, "As long as you listen to your grandmother's arrangements today, you can do whatever you want in the future." She didn't move her hand away from Yi Qian's wrist. She was waiting for her hand to be pushed away so that the school leaders could see what a good student was like in their eyes. Chapter 1171. As long as she moved, she would immediately fall to the ground. She would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Would a century-old school protect a student who pushed, scolded, and hit an elderly person? Old Madam Ye's plan was indeed brilliant. If it had been another person today, they might not have fallen for the first trick, but the second and third tricks might have fallen for it. But for Yi Jian, who had lived two lives, how could she, who could even see through life and death, not know what old Madam Yi was up to? Old Madam Ye's perceived threat had no effect on Yi Qian. All she got in return was a cold, thin laugh that brushed past her ear. It was very light, like a flower falling to the ground, but also contained the calm before destruction. The world is so big. You, an old lady in your 60s, are discussing the future with me, who is still in my prime. Old Madam, haven't you counted how many days you have left? It had to be said that Yi Qian's mouth was sometimes poisonous. It was so poisonous that it sent chills down one's spine. Every word was ruthless, like a double-edged sword that could stab someone until they bled. Especially for old Madam Yi, who cherished her life. She didn't want to hear these kinds of words. She was still putting on airs, but in the next second, her face turned green and white. She was panting heavily, just like her mother, just like her mother. She was so rebellious that she couldn't wait to break her bones and throw her out to feed the dogs. Yi Qian had always been sharp. She saw old Madam Ye's every move. Seeing that old Madame Yi was so angry that she was about to faint, her smile deepened. My father is honest, so my mother won't fight with you. But that doesn't mean that I'm honest and won't fight with you. Old Madame Yi, if you want to transfer my household register to your hands, stop dreaming. She couldn't deal with old Madame Yi gently and quietly. She also couldn't use the same method she used on Sun Dongqing. 60 years old was considered an old person. If he were to argue with her, he would first be accused of being arrogant and despotic, not knowing how to respect the elderly and love the young. In addition, Yi Jifan was also involved in this matter, so the matter would be infinitely exaggerated and exaggerated. There was no need to reprimand her loudly. She only needed to say one sentence to anger her. That was enough. Old Madame Yi was really angry. Not only did she not get what she wanted, but she was also angered by Yi Qian to the point that her heart throbbed with pain. He hated that he could not just throw a slap over and suck out all the resentment in his heart. Then he heard Yi Qian say with a faint smile, "You tried so hard to transfer my household registration to yours. I'm afraid it has something to do with Yi Jifan. Don't be angry. If you faint from anger and hurt your body, you'll have to suffer." Finally, the old lady, who had exhausted her last bit of patience, said coldly, "In other words, you won't listen to Grandma today, no matter what, right? Since you won't listen to my advice, Yi Qian, don't blame Granny for being heartless." Yi Qian laughed. "Old Madam, when have you ever had feelings for me? It would be strange if you felt anything for me, but I wouldn't be surprised if you felt nothing for me. Back then, you saw Sun Yaozu kick me until I fainted and then ordered him to throw me into the snow. Now that I think about it, you guys are going to do it again. No matter what, I can't miss this great opportunity." Her gaze gradually turned cold. That trace of coldness was like a steel needle piercing directly into old Madame Ye's face. It was as if she could see through people's hearts. She seemed to be implying something. Old Madame Ye's expression became even more gloomy. Back then, she had come back in a hurry. If she had stayed for one more day, she might have really gotten rid of the scourge in front of her, and today's incident wouldn't have happened. Chapter 1172. There was finally regret in old Madame Ye's eyes. She regretted that she didn't get rid of Yi Qian when she was young. The possibility of making an evil person repent one day was close to zero. Facing old Madame Ye's haze, Yi Qian, whose eyes were filled with emotions, smiled faintly and added, "God knows what you're doing. God is watching what you do. Don't think that what you've done will cause people to forget the truth as time passes. Old Madam, I'm telling you very clearly that I'll remember everything you've done to me. I'll remember it clearly." The first half of the sentence seemed to be said casually, but it was actually a test. She wanted to see what old Madame Ye's expression would be when she said this. As Yi Qian finished speaking, old Madame Ye's expression tensed up again. She quickly looked down at Yi Xinfan's photo and used her drooping eyelids to hide the darkness in her eyes. Yi Qian felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on her chest. It was so heavy that she couldn't even breathe properly. What did old Madame Yi do to father? She didn't even dare to look at him. Yi Qian closed her eyes. In her previous life, other than keeping an eye on Yi Jifan's family, she had never thought of keeping an eye on old Madame Yi. In her previous life, she only wanted to seek justice for herself. She also wanted to ask old Madame Yi if she regretted what she had done to her parents. But she never thought that. Her father's accidental death might have a lot to do with old Madame Yi. Unfilial. She was indeed unfilial. Luckily, she could start her life over. She had to settle the things she didn't settle in her previous life one by one in this life. Yi Qian steadied her mind and quietly approached old Madame Yi. "My father isn't your biological son. Don't even think about getting any benefits from me. Don't even think about getting my household register back. Don't even think about causing trouble for me during my college entrance exams." Her voice was cold and faint. There was even a trace of understanding in it. "Old Madam, if you don't want anyone to know, don't do it in the first place. Will wait for your retribution. I will see what will happen to you, the old madam who forced my father to death. I will see what kind of ending will befall you. An old lady who doesn't have a shred of compassion. Yi Qian's calm voice drifted into old Madame Fu's ears and echoed her heart. Her words made old Madame Ye's anger surge in wave after wave. She was so angry that her body couldn't help but tremble. After repeating the word good a few times, she said with a face full of anger, Yi Qian, I'd like to see who will suffer retribution. After that, the old lady could not stay any longer. Before Yi Qian could shake off her hand, she withdrew her hand and left the office angrily without looking back. She loosened her grip, and Yi Qian also loosened his grip on Yi Zhixiang's hand. He stared coldly at old Madame Ye's back, and his lips curled into a cold smile. It was necessary to investigate how her father had died in an accident, and it was even more necessary to investigate why her mother had sacrificed herself. Also, why Sun Ziao was blind in one eye when he came back that year, and why he was filled with hatred toward him. It was necessary to investigate thoroughly. Yi Zhixiang, who was finally free, saw that Yi Qian had clearly scratched her wrist. Before she left, she said fiercely, Yi Qian, just you wait. I will definitely get back at you for this. She had miscalculated today. She shouldn't have just come here. She should have brought someone with her. Chapter 1173. Her threat only made Yi Qian smile faintly. Sure, I want to settle the score with you two. It was unlikely that she would be able to find out what had frightened the mother and daughter from old Madame Yi, but she could try on Yi Zhixiang. She wanted to regain some of her dignity before leaving, but she was so frightened by Yi Qian's words that she lost her balance and sprained her right leg. She was even more embarrassed when she left. Little Jian, it's very likely that they will come and cause trouble again. Principal Chun walked to Yi Qian's side and whispered, but if you let them stay today, it will affect your exam. Yi Qian did not turn around. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice carried a hint of sadness. She replied softly, No, Uncle Chun, they won't come again for the time being. She had tested her twice, but the angry old Madame Yi did not notice. After she calmed down and thought about it carefully, she would not act rashly. She would not make a move until she found out the truth. If she really came, it would mean that she realized that she did not know anything. But how could she let an old lady find out that she was just testing her and did not know anything? Principal Chun saw that she was calm, as if she already had a plan. He smiled and said, That's good, as long as you know what to do. You've always been sensible, and there is nothing we need to worry about. I believe you can handle old Madame Yi well. The little girl of the past had grown up. There were some things that she did not need help from others. She could face them on her own. Miss Jian had grown up. He and Uncle Jin needed to let go of her and not hold her hand tightly. They needed to let the adults tell her what to do, and then she would do it. A child's growth required constant bumps and bruises. Only then would she truly grow up. Principal Chun chose to let go. He stood aside and watched her grow up step by step. I was careless today. I didn't expect the elegant and kind old lady to. Teacher Tong's guilty voice came from the office. It was so soft that only the people in the office could hear it. No one lost their composure because of this. They all maintained a different level of self-restraint as they discussed what had just happened. There were still 10 minutes to the end of the exam. Yi Qian, who had not left, listened quietly. There were people who cared about her. It did not matter if her grandmother was there or not. After leaving the school, old Madame Yi could no longer hide her anger. Her expression was so ferocious that even her facial features were distorted. Mom, why are you leaving so soon? We haven't finished our business yet. Yi Zhixiang, who had caught up with her, did not see the ferocious look on old Madame Ye's face. Her footsteps were uneven as she caught up with old Madame Yi. She complained, That wretched girl doesn't respect you at all. Why didn't you slap her in the face just now? How infuriating. My wrist is all red from her grip. Look, they're all red. At this moment, old Madame Yi was not in the mood to care whether her daughter's wrist was red or not. Hearing that she was only complaining to her and not caring at all, old Madame Yi turned her head and looked at her daughter coldly. You're usually so fierce. Why are you standing there like a mute today? Her voice was full of anger. It was obvious that she was in a bad mood. Yi Jifan looked at the gloomy old madam, Yi casually, and said, Mom, you're underestimating Yi Qian. Chapter 1174. Hearing old Madame Ye's words, Yi Jixiang no longer dared to complain loudly. However, it was impossible for her to not say anything. She lowered her voice and muttered carefully, You've been bullied by that wretched girl. How can you vent your anger on me? You're in your 30s and 40s. You're worse than her. Old Madame Ye's heart ached even more when she heard this. The fake kindness on her face disappeared without a trace. Only sharpness remained between her eyebrows. She's not even 20 years old. She's suppressing an elder like you. Where's her usual shrewdness? You're acting like a mouse in front of a cat. Even I feel ashamed for you. Yi Jixiang was a typical bully who feared the strong and bullied the weak. However, she was still stubborn. After being exposed by old Madame Yi, she felt embarrassed. Mom, do you think I want to do this? Have you forgotten what happened at Caesar Hotel? She wanted to kill me. At the mention of Caesar Hotel, old Madame Yi, who was also frightened by Yi Qian, suddenly stopped in her tracks and grabbed Yi Jifan's arm. Jifan, did you find out if Master Ho-san has anything to do with that brat? As soon as she finished asking, she saw Yi Jifan frowning as if he was recalling something. Old Madame Yi couldn't help but say angrily, How could you forget such an important thing? That brat isn't even afraid of you, a provincial official. She clearly has someone backing her up. Master Ho-san is one of the top figures in the southern province. How could he support that brat for no reason? It's obvious. There's something we don't know about. In the past, she thought it was probably a coincidence that Master Ho-san, who had always been loyal and principled even in the underworld, had stepped in to mediate. Now that she thought about it, how could it have been a coincidence? If the hotel was filled with all kinds of guests every day, how could Master Ho-san have the time to step in? How could he have just happened to appear in the room? The more she thought about it, the more old Madame Yi felt that there must be something going on between the two of them. She blinked and asked Yi Jixiang, I don't think Master Ho-san is married. Ask Yazoo to find out if there are any rumors about Master Ho-san being a kept woman. Yi Jixiang was good at gathering information, and after hearing old Madame Ye's words, she reacted much more quickly. Her eyes lit up, and she said excitedly, Mom, are you suspecting that the wretched girl is being kept by Third Master Ho? Old Madame Yi pondered for a while, and then slowly said, It's not impossible. That brat is even more seductive than Sun Shuetching, and her skin is as white as snow. Her tone suddenly became sour, and she curled her lips disdainfully. With her looks, she's not qualified to be kept by a rich man. People like Master Ho-san love to play with girls who are so tender that they can squeeze water out of water. That wretched girl is so seductive. Maybe she's really lucky to be kept by Master Ho-san. It was no wonder that the mother and daughter could be so whimsical. There was rarely any news about Ho-zi. It was said that there was a boss in Harbor City who wanted to build a relationship with Ho-zi. However, he felt that there were only a few underworld gangsters in the mainland. As a boss in Harbor City, he lowered himself to be sworn brothers with Ho-zi because he thought highly of Ho-zi. Therefore, he invited a few wild models from Harbor City to the southern province and wanted to get to know Ho-zi through them. When the man arrived, Ho-zi went to meet him. When she opened the door of the private room, a few beautiful women in bikinis surrounded her. Ho-zi came in and toasted to the boss in Harbor City. The whole thing happened in less than a minute, and then she left with her men. Chapter 1175. Before he left, he said, I didn't expect the boss of Harbor City to have such a shallow taste in women. How could he treat a few girls with crooked noses and slanted eyes as treasures? In less than 5 minutes, he sent 10 foreign models to Harbor City's boss, slapping him in the face with his actions. After that, it was rumored that Third Master Ho's taste was very high. The women he chose not only had to be beautiful, but also elegant and intelligent. As for Yi Qian, No matter how much old Madame Yi hated her, she had to admit that she really met Ho Zi's requirements. She was beautiful and had an indescribable air of arrogance. She was so smart that she could go abroad to compete, and so young that she was like a flower bud that was about to bloom. No matter how one looked at her, she seemed to be able to catch Ho Zi's eye. Yi Zhifan didn't say anything and only said indifferently, "It's good to let my little sister investigate. If I have any news, I'll send a letter to Mother." There are only 40 days before her college entrance examination. If my little sister can really find out something, we can use it. If there is conclusive evidence of a good student being kept, even if we don't get her household registration, the school will be pressured to expel her. It didn't matter what method was used as long as the goal was achieved. The matter was settled. Old Madame Yi revealed a faint smile and then sighed. Alas, disobedient children always have to suffer a little. Only after suffering a little will they understand. We are her family. It's better to let her suffer a little in her own home than in society. In the blink of an eye, old Madame Yi returned to her amiable appearance. Her face was full of helplessness. Yi Zhifan glanced at her, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. The old woman was good at pretending when she was young. When she was old, she was even better at it. People who didn't know her would really think that she was a kind person. When he went back, he would remind son Dongqing to avoid the old woman as much as possible. Yi Zhixiang, who was a little interested in the conversation, suddenly asked, "Mother, how did that wretched girl suddenly know that Big Brother is not your biological son? Who told her?" Her eyes were already looking at Yi Zhifan. "You don't have to look at me. I only found out later than you that Big Brother is not Mom's son." Yi Zhifan was not lying. When he found out, he was still in a daze. It turned out that the old woman had only given birth to one child, Yi Zhixiang. Old Madame Yi glanced at her daughter and said angrily, "Old Man Jin knows your uncle, and he also knows that your brother is not my biological son. That wretched girl is close to Old Man Jin. What's so strange about her knowing?" He then warned, "Go back and inform Yaozu to investigate Master Hosan. Inform me immediately if there is any news. Your brother is right." If news of a good student being kept as a mistress gets out, that wretched girl will only be expelled. At this time, they still didn't know what the consequences of offending Yi Qian would be. They were so focused on taking down Yi Qian that they forgot about Ho Zi's reaction. When Ho Zi found out that someone was secretly investigating whether he and Yi Jian were kept as mistresses, even he, who had always been calm, was a little stunned. Sitting in the air-conditioned room on a hot day, he shivered and asked his two assistants, "Does Miss Xia know about it too?" She should know. The news came out after Miss Xia attended a charity auction. Miss Xia was there at the time, and you were busy with the auction. The assistant was very reserved. At the time, Master Ho San was busy being jealous and fighting with the returning designer who was standing next to Miss Xia. Chapter 1176. When the incident from a few days ago was brought up, the gloomy Ho Zi snapped the pen in his hand in two and said in a deep voice, "Investigate it. I want to see who the F***CK dares to frame me." If he found out it was that gigolo, he would definitely break his hamstring. More than a year had passed, and Ho Zi and Xia Yiwei's relationship was still complicated. When Xia Yiwei unilaterally announced a breakup, Ho Zi pretended not to know and continued to act as her boyfriend. However, the beauty had a boyfriend who even their parents had met before. Sometimes, when Ho Zi coincidentally bumped into Xia Yiwei, he would also see the love rival that he hated so much that he couldn't just get rid of. Now, Xia Yiwei had yet to return to his embrace, and there were rumors that he was keeping Yi Qian as his mistress. That was Xia Lalio's girlfriend. Even Xia Yiwei knew about it. Xia Lalu should know about it too. At this time, Xia Yiwei was on the phone with Xia Jinyuan. She was sitting in her office in a black slim-fit suit with one arm crossed. She was laughing so hard that tears glistened in her eyes. When I heard the news, I was a little dumbfounded. They actually said that Ho Zi was keeping Yi Qian as his mistress. I think this was most likely a rumor spread by someone who had a grudge with Ho Zi. Xia Yiwei didn't think that this rumor could be targeted at Yi Qian. After all, a student was not as important as a mafia boss. But if the rumor was really directed at Ho Zi, then Yi Qian was in danger. After laughing, Xia Yiwei looked serious and said in a low voice, "Do you want me to go to the school and inform Yi Qian to be careful these few days? There are only 20 days left until the college entrance exam. Why don't you just stay on campus?" Although living in the neighborhood was convenient, it wasn't as safe as living in the school. Since the person who had a grudge with Ho Zi was able to mention Yi Qian's name, it was obvious that they had spent a lot of effort to investigate. If they really sent someone to look for Yi Qian to threaten Ho Zi, it wouldn't be safe for her to live alone in the neighborhood. Xia Jinyuan, who didn't even take off his helmet, leaned against his desk. His body was covered in smoke, and he even put aside his fatigue. He said in a deep voice, "Yi Qian and Brother Z have only met twice. It's impossible for there to be any rumors about them having an improper relationship. It's even more unlikely that someone who has a grudge with Brother Z would bring up the past only now. The possibility of Brother Z's enemy deliberately spreading the news is very low. I suspect that someone is trying to harm Yi Qian." Xia Jinyuan, who had just finished his training, learned from the guards that a woman with the surname Xia had been calling the army every day since a few days ago. She had left a message that he must pass on the message immediately when she saw him, saying that she had something urgent to tell him. When he returned to the barracks and heard the message from the guards, he ran back to his office and called Xia Yiwei back. He was afraid that Yi Qian, whom he had entrusted to Xia Yiwei's care, had met with an accident. At this moment, even the oil paint couldn't hide the sharpness in his eyes. His voice was as cold as ice as he said in a deep voice, "This kind of thing won't affect Brother Z. It will affect Yi Qian, who's about to take the college entrance exam." After he said that, Xia Yiwei immediately reacted. She frowned and replied, "That's right. That's why I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I heard it and didn't take it seriously. Now that I've heard what you said, the one who will be affected the most is indeed Yi Qian. Don't worry. Let me take a look at my work here. If something really happened to Yi Qian, whom Old Six doted on like the apple of his eye, she didn't know what crazy things Old Six would do. She had to deal with it immediately." Chapter 1177. She opened her schedule and checked it immediately. Today was Wednesday. There was a small meeting in the afternoon that would end at 4 p.m. Other than that, there was nothing else. It didn't matter if she attended the small meeting or not. She had to go to the school first. After putting away the schedule, Xia Yiwei tidied up her desk and said to Xia Jinyuan, "I'm going to the school to take a look. It doesn't matter if it affects Ho Zi, but it definitely can't affect Yi Qian. Thank you for your hard work." Xia Jinyuan pursed his thin lips. He couldn't rush over. The recruit training would end in July. As an instructor, he couldn't just leave. He couldn't go over himself, so he could only find out the progress of the matter through Xia Yiwei. After tidying up, Xia Yiwei smiled. "I'm not used to you being so polite to me all of a sudden. It's done. It's just a small matter. If someone really wants to target Yi Qian, I can take care of it." She paused and joked, "I realize that Yi Qian attracts a lot of villains. She has a lot more problems than other students in high school, and none of them are small." She knew that there were 3 major problems. The first one happened during the National Day military training in her second year of high school. If she didn't have some skills, she might have been ostracized and couldn't participate in the military training. The second one was even bigger. There was a suicide incident at the provincial first high school, and Yi Qian was almost pushed off the building. The third one, there were even rumors of her being a kept woman. It's not that she attracts villains. It's because she's too outstanding that others are jealous of her. Plus, she doesn't like to explain herself. She has a quiet personality and doesn't like to argue with her classmates. She's always been this way, so those who are jealous of her don't even have a chance to find fault with her. You can see a thing or two about the complexity of human nature. Being too perfect will also attract trouble. The person who knew Yi Qian the best was Xia Jinyuan. Xia Yiwei agreed and added, "Also, Yi Qian's extraordinariness sets off their ordinariness. At her age, she shouldn't be so advanced. It's normal for her to attract jealousy. It's better for her to be in a different environment. If she's in an environment full of smart people, like the junior class, who would be jealous? That was true. The junior class at the University of Science and Technology was full of extraordinary people. Yi Qian wouldn't be so extraordinary if she went to the junior class. The college entrance examination is only 20 days away. Sister, please take good care of her and let her finish the college entrance examination smoothly. Xia Jinyuan was not only talking, he was also thinking about who would target Yi Jian. After much thought, he could only think of Yi Jifan's family. Yi Jifan was a provincial official. Xia Yiwei, who also worked in the provincial office, naturally knew him. Knowing that Xia Jinyuan wouldn't suspect someone for no reason, she called Ho Zi. Ho Zi, who was instructing her subordinates to investigate, glanced at her phone and saw a number she knew by heart. Ho Zi quickly picked up the phone and said calmly, "I don't need to tell you about my relationship with Yi Qian. She's Xiao Lao's girlfriend. No matter how King stupid I am, I wouldn't do anything to his people. I don't care how stupid you are. Just now, Laolu told me that this matter is probably directed at Yi Qian. You better check if you've offended a provincial official named Yi Jifan. Laolu suspects that he's the one who spread the rumors." Xia Yiwei hung up the phone, picked up her car keys, and rushed to the provincial high school. Chapter 1178. Xia Yiwei seemed to have really turned cold towards Ho Zi. Every time Ho Zi appeared in front of her, she would never talk about the past and would immediately turn around and leave. As for phone calls, ever since she unilaterally broke up with him, she never took the initiative to contact him again. She broke up with him just like that and stopped contacting him just like that. Ho Zi was shocked by her decisiveness. When a woman was ruthless, she could be even more ruthless than a man. Once a woman decided to stop loving someone, it was even harder for her to change her mind than a man. Her decisiveness in hanging up the phone once again made Ho Zi so angry that his expression changed completely. He gripped his phone tightly, and his arms trembled as he lowered his head. Only Miss Xia could make their third master so angry that he wanted to kill someone, and he had to hold it in. After a while, Ho Zi's cold voice sounded in the office that was filled with murderous intent. "I have one day. I want to know who's gossiping behind my back by this time tomorrow." His voice was so heavy that it felt like a few inches of ice. It was so cold that the calves of his assistant, who was listening to his orders, secretly trembled. It had been a long time since the third master was angry. The assistant couldn't remember the last time he was angry. It had been at least 3 years, if not 5 years. "I've already sent someone to investigate. I'll report to you as soon as there's any news." Ho Zi's subordinates had always been good at handling matters. As long as it had something to do with Xia Yiwei, they would put it first and didn't dare to delay at all. Especially when there were rumors that the third master was having an affair with a high school student and kept her as a mistress, they didn't dare to delay. "Detain the person. I haven't met anyone who dares to add to my scandal in a long time." Ho Zi stood up and tugged at his tie in annoyance. "I'm going out for a while. Call the chairman of Changguang Corporation and tell him that I have something urgent to deal with. I'll arrange a place to apologize to him tomorrow." This was the first time she had taken the initiative to call him in a few hundred days. It was obvious that she had taken note of this matter. Of course, he didn't think that she was taking note of it because of him. The first thing he said was, "She's probably targeting Yi Qian." Sigh. When she took the initiative to call, he didn't expect that it was all thanks to old Six's girlfriend that he got a call from her, even though it was only for 16 seconds. After being in love for 17 years, both of them could more or less guess what the other party would do next. When Xia Yiwei drove to the entrance of the provincial first high school, she saw the man she was most familiar with standing beside the black car with one hand in his trouser pocket, exuding a cold aura as he waited for her. "You've come." Ho Zi walked over and looked at his lover, whom he could hug as long as he stretched out his hand. Now, it was difficult for him to even see her. His heart ached slightly. He didn't know why he had come to this point. Xia Yiwei took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of clear eyes. It was rare for someone in their mid-30s to still have a pair of eyes as clear as a young girl's. She looked at Ho Zi indifferently, and her red lips curved slightly. Something happened to Six Brothers' girlfriend. As his sister, of course I have to come. I'll go with you. There's no need to trouble Third Master Ho with our family matters. Also, I'll have to trouble Third Master Ho to clean up your matters first. Don't implicate my family. Xia Yiwei's smile gradually smoothed out. Her expression gradually turned cold as she rejected him indifferently. I don't want to implicate Yi Qian because of your matter and make Sixth Brother worry. I also don't want Yi Qian to suffer because of your matter. Chapter 1179. She kept calling him Master Ho-san and told him not to implicate my family. The way she looked at him was even colder than when she looked at a stranger. There was no trace of past friendship in her eyes. There was only coldness, rejection, and rejection towards him. Master Ho-san felt as if his heart was blocked by a pile of broken ice. His originally warm heart was now so cold that it felt as if his blood had frozen. Anyway, do we still need to be so clear? Master Ho-san, we didn't need to be so clear in the past. But now, you have your life and I have mine. We need to be clear. As the secretary of the Southern Province's governor, how could Xia Yiwei do the job if she didn't have the courage? Ho Zi, whose face was even more beautiful than a woman's, was so angry that the veins on her forehead were popping out. Her tone didn't even have the slightest fluctuation. Xia Yiwei looked at him with a sharp and cold gaze. He was angry and very angry. She had never made him angry before. She had always been a virtuous and magnanimous girlfriend. She didn't expect that after breaking up with him, she would anger the famous Master Ho-san. It was really sarcastic. Ho Zi saw that her gaze had turned cold. There was a trace of sadness in his anger. At this point, he indeed had to bear a lot of responsibility. He controlled his temper and said, I need to ask Lao's girlfriend if she has any grudges with Yi Fan. At the same time, I also need to ask if she has offended anyone recently. Since you want me to solve the matter that will affect your family as soon as possible, you should at least let me investigate. The reason was very good. Xia Yiwei couldn't refuse to go with him. So when Yi Qian saw the two of them sitting on the same stone bench by Swan Lake, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Captain Xia said that Sister Xia seemed to have made up her mind to not be with Ho Zi anymore. She also said that her relationship with the designer was stable. Why did they come to find him together today? Jane Eyre, over here. Xia Yiwei had already spotted Yi Qian. She stood up gracefully and waved at him. In comparison, Ho Zi's reaction was a beat slower. His attention was on the woman he loved, and he did not pay attention to his surroundings. It was summer in the southern province. In the afternoon, the sun shone so brightly that the leaves on the trees curled up. However, Xia Yiwei, who was wearing a professional suit, did not sweat at all. Her makeup was clean, and she did not seem to feel hot at all. With a serious expression, she said calmly, If you haven't heard of it yet, either the school doesn't know about it, or the school knows about it, but doesn't believe it. She was Ho Zi's kept woman. Yi Qian, who appeared calm on the surface, was actually a little embarrassed. Of all the things to spread, why did they have to spread the rumor that she was Ho Zi's kept woman? Sixth Brother reminded me that this matter might have something to do with Yi Fan. I'm here today to ask if you have any other suspects. Ho Zi said, I thought that someone was targeting me, but doesn't seem like it. If someone is really targeting me, Yi Qian, I can tell you very seriously that it's not just a rumor. He had too many enemies around him, and they were all ruthless people who had killed people. If someone was really targeting him, how could they just spread some rumors? Yi Qian smiled and said, It shouldn't be targeting Brother Z. I'm afraid this matter is really targeting me. As for the suspect, she paused slightly and looked at Ho Zi with her bright black eyes. Brother Z, do you know a man named Sun Yaozu? Chapter 1180. Sun Yaozu? After going through the names in his mind, Ho Zi muttered, I've never heard of this person. Sun Yaozu's wife is called Yi Jixiang. She and Yi Jifan are siblings. Yi Qian told Ho Zi everything that happened 20 days ago. He also told Ho Zi what old Madame Yi said, so that Ho Zi could use it as a reference for his investigation. I'm not suspecting Yi Jifan. I'm suspecting old Madame Yi and Yi Jixiang. Old Madame Yi said, rumors are an invisible killing weapon. She said it herself. Now that there were rumors about her being Ho Zi's mistress, Yi Qian was almost certain that the mother and daughter were behind it. Sun Yaozu, right? Okay, I'll go back and check. If it's really his family, I'll invite their whole family out for tea and have a good chat. Ho Zi said elegantly. His words were gentle, and there was no hint of ruthlessness in them. However, Xia Yiwei, who had not looked at him directly, frowned slightly. She glanced at the man she knew best and asked Yi Qian, if it's really their family who spread the rumors, how do you plan to deal with it? Are you going to be gentle, or do you want to be forceful? Ho Zi's face was gloomy. When he heard this, he suddenly laughed. His gaze on Xia Yiwei was even more scorching than the bright sunlight. 17 years of relationship and understanding. They were so familiar that they could sometimes know each other's intentions with just a look or a movement. Even if they had been separated for hundreds of days, the familiarity that was engraved in their bones was still as close as ever. The reason why Xia Yiwei's words made Ho Zi's gaze burn was because he could tell that she was asking Yi Qian for him. Even Yi Qian could feel his scorching gaze, let alone Xia Yiwei. However, she still calmed down and said without changing her expression, if you're going to be gentle, tell us first. If you're going to be forceful, just let him handle it. Yiwei, she's about to take the college entrance exam. Whether you're going to be gentle or forceful, let me handle this. Ho Zi smiled. His smile was more radiant than the sun. His facial features were like a painting, and even the sun would be amazed by his beauty. I'll handle it. Don't worry. Xia Yiwei looked as if she did not notice. She glanced at him and said to Yi Qian, who wanted to walk away slowly, that's right. You should focus on the exam. You don't have to worry about other things. Sorry for troubling you, Sister Xia. Ho Zi's eyes' gaze. Ho Zi's to be ignored again. Xia Yiwei's eyes. Of Xia Yiwei. Xia Yiwei. Xia Yiwei zes Xia. The school won the school, even if the schools wouldn't take it. Of course, the school wouldn't the school Xia's schools. Ho Zi calmly interjected, if the students really do talk about it, I'll ask the person who spread the rumors to apologize in the newspaper, in front of the school, or on TV. No matter what, Ho Zi had to take responsibility for this matter. He told Yi Qian his plan. His forceful way of dealing with things made Yi Qian see it. But his plan really moved Yi Qian. How would old Madame Yi have the face to appear in front of him again? Xia Yiwei was also moved. Moreover, this way of dealing with things was not lacking in gentleness. It was reasonable and wouldn't cause a big problem. Chapter 1181. The big issue she was thinking of was Ho Zi's violent solution. When Yi Qian saw that her expression had finally softened, he smiled and suggested to Ho Zi, Zigu, I have a suggestion. A suggestion with a little bit of selfishness. When Ho Zi raised his eyebrows, Yi Qian slowly said, Sun Yaozu is a little dirty. I used to suspect that he was a fugitive. I investigated him, but there were no results. Now that he's back in Nan Province, he must have heard of your name. With your power and status in Nan Province, it's enough for him to pay you a visit and make friend with you. If you say something harsh about this matter, I'm sure Sun Yaozu will know, and Yi Jixiang and old Madam, you will also know. Don't you think this family will be on tenterhooks? Xia Yiwei chuckled, only sharpening the knife without slashing it. Not bad. It's enough to make the whole family on tenterhooks. Ho Zi was a notorious killer in the underworld. 7 years ago, someone purposely hid goods in the kitchen of a bar under his name. When he found out, he immediately said something harsh. In the end, before the police could find anything, the person who deliberately framed him was so scared that he turned himself in. If the person who spread the rumors was really Yi Jifan's mother and sister, they would probably be scared half to death when they found out. Yi Qian said a few more words to Ho Zi, then ran back to the classroom 2 minutes before the bell rang. After her figure disappeared, Ho Zi said with interest, "A girl who knows how to use a gun is indeed impressive. She also has quite a personality. Old Six has good taste. Do you think I should tolerate being bullied?" Xia Yiwei said coldly, then left in her high heels without looking back. Ho Zi didn't care and chased after her with a smile on his face. She still cared about him, which was equivalent to giving him hope. He didn't think that what was originally a bad thing would become a happy thing. A happy thing that let him know that Xia Yiwei still cared about him. To Ho Zi, this was a joyous occasion. To Sun Yaozu, he was happy that he had found a way to get close to Ho Zi. However, after hearing Yi Zhixiang's words, his face turned from joy to anger. You said that Yi Qian is Master Ho San's sugar daddy. Is it you and mother-in-law who spread the news? Sun Yaozu was furious, but he was still unwilling to give up. He asked in a tense voice, "You said it? Or mother-in-law?" Yi Zhixiang, who was wearing a facial mask, didn't see her husband's face move. Sensing that something was wrong with his voice, she removed the mask and frowned. "My mom told me, and I told you. What's with your expression? Let me tell you, if this matter succeeds, Yi Qian will definitely be expelled from the school. When that time comes, it will be a matter of time before we step in and kill her. Since her mother blinded you, I'll make her daughter pay with her life." Sun Yaozu was so angry that his face turned the color of pig liver. He didn't hesitate at all. He didn't give Yi Zhixiang any time to prepare. He raised his hand, and the crisp sound of a slap came from the bedroom. "Master Ho San, how dare you spread rumors about Master Ho San?" He roared in anger. Yi Zhixiang, who was stunned by the slap, covered her burning face. After a few seconds, she shouted, "You bastard! How dare you hit me? Who am I doing this for? I'm doing this for you. How dare you hit me?" After being married for so many years, this was the first time Yi Zhixiang was hit by her husband. How could she bear it? She pounced on Sun Yaozu and scratched his face with her sharp fingers. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.